across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. Stand by for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 7 o'clock. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 03444 99 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number. And I promise to play your message out. It is Monday, July the 13th. Here's what's coming up. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm used to social media lynch mobs and don't really care what they say. I can take it. I'm used to it. But I spent most of the weekend under ferocious attack on social media, on Twitter and the rest, for suggesting that I didn't entirely trust Devon and Cornwall Police's instruction to us not to speculate because there was no indication that the brutal murder of Ann Widdecombe was either politically motivated or terrorism, although the Rozzers were, and I quote, keeping an open mind. Now, that keeping an open mind caveat looks rather wise because the Devon and Cornwall Constabulary has been taken off the case and the investigation is being handled now by the Counter Terrorism Squad. So, what a shock. Ann's death wasn't the result of a 300-mile joyride from Rotherham that ended in random tragedy. Why do the cops make these nothing to see here announcements when they don't actually know? 0344499 1000. After Southport, after Henry Novak and countless other egregious examples of two-tier justice, why should we trust the police? 0344499 1000. Meanwhile, why are Nigel Farage and his Reform UK MPs getting crucified for taking sensible precautions about their own safety and, what a disgrace, travelling to their tragic colleague Ms Widdecombe's home to lay flowers and pay their respects? Can anyone tell me what exactly Nigel and his colleagues, his crew, have done wrong here? And don't, for God's sake, say they are using the Widdecombe horror to deflect from the ongoing row about party financing and Farage's alleged personal enrichment. That's to suggest that the Reform UK crowd are relieved about this headline-hitting horror because it takes the heat off them. What a vile thing to say. How vile is that? 0344499 1000. Naturally, that suggestion is coming from the Be Kind brigade of the lovely left, one of whom, some bloke in a dress, former Labour candidate who works at Aberdeen University, tweeted that he hopes Anne died handcuffed to a bed, screaming in agony. His name is Heather Herbert, or should that be Herbert Heather? What should happen to this miserable excuse of a human being? 0344499 1000. In other news, King Andy will be crowned Prime Minister in 1 week's time, having waltzed into Downing Street unhindered by even so much of a hint of democracy. Will this unelected cardboard cutout Labour leader back Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's migrant crisis crackdown? 0344499 1000. If he does, he's going to enrage his left-wing Labour backbenchers, that's for damn sure. And when Burnham suggested that Starmer got it wrong by standing with Israel after the October the 7th atrocity, was his extraordinary statement anti-Semitic? Is Burnham just a slightly better-looking version of veteran Israel hater Jeremy Corbyn? 0344499 1000. Meanwhile, late in life, two-tier Kia at long last moves to ban the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. and another group called the Islamic Movement of the Right. No word on the Muslim Brotherhood, but I guess better late than never. Also today, the migrants are crossing the Channel in force again, and on Friday, a record number of them made it from France in one not-so-small boat, an astonishing 128 passengers on board. 585 in 3 days crossed the Channel altogether towards the end of last week, and still they come. I'll also ask why there still hasn't been a word from Starmer, Burnham and the gang after the disgraceful Morocco fans rioted in London because their little football team was thrashed in the World Cup by the far superior France. Would Keir be quite as silent if it had been England fans draped in the St George's Cross flag? Or would he have called them far-right racists and banged them up in jail double quick for disproportionately long sentences? What do you reckon? 03444991000. And finally, the inside story of Harry and Meghan's chaotic visit to see the King, and why the royals are furious with the dim Duke after his petulant response to being annihilated in court by the Daily Mail. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday afternoon together, and let's go over to my first guest. He is former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley. Welcome, Peter.
Good afternoon.
What is your take on this? As I said, you know, I have a great respect for hard-working police officers who just get on with the job. But you know what we're talking about. It's not the rank-and-file coppers who are the problem. It's the top coppers. It's the senior policemen. It's the woke chief constables. Now, when they start announcing, was it Friday, Saturday morning, you know, don't speculate. There's no suggestion that Ann Widdecombe's murder was in any way politically motivated or terrorism. You know, I sort of tweeted, well, how do they know? I'm not so sure I trust them. People said, why don't you trust the police? I said, oh, I don't know. Southport, Henry Novak, so many other egregious examples of two-tier policing. They've lost our trust, and I think the way Devon and Cornwall police behaved over the weekend, making statements about which they knew nothing, has done nothing to help the situation in terms of the public's falling trust in the cops. To say that when they obviously didn't know, it's just ridiculous. Why did they say there's no suggestion it could be politically motivated or terrorism, when clearly they were not in possession of all the facts? And today we learn that the Counter Terrorism Squad have taken over from Devon and Cornwall Police, because it wasn't true to say there was no suggestion of political motivation or terrorism. Really bad weekend for Devon and Cornwall Police, I would suggest.
Absolutely shocking. But let's rewind only 1 week to last Monday, when Lord Blunkett and Lord Herbert published their report into senior police in Britain. And what did they discover? Cronyism, nepotism, senior rank being used for sexual favours, corruption, and much more. So are we remotely surprised that senior police officers in Britain are getting it wrong again and again and again? And I could quote many examples of senior officers lying, for example. Anyway, sticking to the dreadful murder of Anne, what is clear to me is that these senior officers have bowed to media pressure. They felt that they've got to say something. They've jumped to conclusions, I would suggest, based on assumptions. And so many of those conclusions have been proved absolutely, fundamentally wrong. So now they look plain stupid, although the sycophantic policing commentators out there will tell you, oh, they were merely reacting to events as they unfolded, which is absolute drivel. They look ridiculous. Public trust in the police has yet again been severely damaged. But let's just hope there is a proper professional investigation into this heinous crime.
Yeah, when are they going to learn, Pete? Because they didn't have to make this statement. They didn't have to say anything, and yet they did. When they didn't have possession of all the facts, clearly, they advise us, first of all, not to speculate. And frankly, to be honest with you, I wish these coppers would stop telling us what to do. We will speculate because it's only natural. Obviously, people will speculate. So that's a ridiculous thing to say. Secondly, you know, don't start making statements based on no facts. They didn't have the facts. The facts emerged this morning. Counter Terrorism Squad have obviously told the Devon and Cornwall cops, hey, listen, you know, this no political motivation, no terrorism, we need a rethink. To the extent, Pete, that Devon and Cornwall police have been taken off the investigation. They are no longer in charge. They kept announcing all over the weekend, like you probably noticed, we still have primacy of this investigation. They were desperately involved in a turf war, trying to keep this headline-hitting probe to themselves so they could be on the front pages, they could be on the telly and all that, and they were just proceeding on no information. They've really made fools of themselves.
Oh, utterly. And it damages public trust in the police. One point I will say, though, Kev, is they've asked us not to speculate online. Of course, we're going to speculate in the pub.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, I agree with that.
Over our tea and toast in the morning and all that kind of thing. And you're free and welcome to do that. That really is not a concern. But let's rewind just to Friday, when they had that delayed press conference. And then almost gleefully, the Deputy Chief Constable said, we have a man in custody. And the almost saying, we've got our man, only for that person to be released the following day, having absolutely nothing to do with the inquiry whatsoever. They've been blown by the wind. They have not been firm and resolute. They've not been confident enough to say, frankly, we don't know. We're going to see how things are panning out. We're doing this, we're doing that. All of which they could do if they were experienced, capable media communicators, but they're not. We know that British senior policing is largely a mess, with incompetent people, over-promoted by people who see them in their own image, which is why they get promoted. People are not promoted because they're great leaders, because they've got great experience, because they're wonderful detectives or uniform officers. They're promoted because they're very good at the promotion process. And that is a consequence. This is what we get.
You know what this is all about, Pete? I'd love to get your take on this. It's the way that the police now have taken on this role for which they are not appointed, which is somehow, you know, keeping the people calm, you know, trying not to work the people up. So what that was all about is, oh, don't let them all start going round saying, oh, she was politically assassinated, she's the victim of terrorism, because that'll cause all sorts of social unrest all over the country. So let's tell them it wasn't that. Keep them calm, keep the plebs calm. That's not the police's job. And in trying to do that job, they have humiliated themselves.
It most definitely isn't. But it's rather symptomatic of your sort of woke, liberal, progressive type of attitudes where we have this overreach now. We all know that the left of politics claim that they're everybody's mate, but they're very, very intolerant. Now we have the police overreaching in a pretty typical kind of way, and they've got worse since COVID. They love to tell us what to do. They love to tell us how to do it when it frankly is nothing to do with them. Stick with your job, communicate properly, firmly, but politely, and stop being blown by the wind, stop chasing your tails, and stop giving incorrect information out to the public, because all that does is further damage trust and confidence in the police. And by crikey, that's low enough as it is.
Exactly. This weekend has made trust in the police already a serious issue, a worrying issue, even worse. I tweeted, I'm sorry, you know, people are saying, oh, why don't you trust the police? How long have you got? How long have you got? Of course I don't trust the police. I think anybody with a half a brain in these situations where there's politics involved don't trust the police. And also, they insulted our intelligence. We shouldn't speculate about what happened or who did it or why they did it or anything like that. But we were in possession of enough of the facts to make what Devon and Cornwall police said look absolutely absurd. We knew that some guy had got into a car in Rotherham, 300 miles or so north of Devon, driven for 5 hours to Devon, and was seen around her house. So we knew that much. He's the guy that's been arrested. So what are Devon and Cornwall Police asking us to believe? That this was some kind of random 300-mile joyride that ended in unexpected tragedy? Just doesn't add up, does it?
Only last month, His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services, to give it its full clunky title, please forgive me, but in other words, the King's Police Inspectorate rated Devon and Cornwall Police as inadequate when it came to investigating crime. That's a really worrying thing, but that was their response only last month from the Inspectorate: inadequate. It would appear there have been inadequacies in communication and possibly investigation into Ann Widdecombe's dreadful murder. It will all come out in the wash. We will see. Now, of course, Counter Terrorism Police have rearrested this man so he can be detained for 14 days, subject to some kind of judicial oversight. The landscape has changed dramatically. We will have to wait and see what comes out. If I was a gambling man, which I'm not, I would expect further arrests, but that's as far as I'm going to go. We'll have to wait and see.
It's interesting and shocking. And Pete, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Peter Blexley there, former Met Police detective, confirming what I said. Now, that's a copper. That's a copper. So never mind about me, but that's Peter Blexley saying that Devon and Cornwall Police have made themselves look like idiots. You know, oh, you don't speculate. Well, you know, don't tell us what to do. And then they go, oh, it's distressing for the family. Yeah, it is, but what are you going to do? It's all over the front pages. I agree with Peter. If possible, it would be good if people could stick off social media with their theories, but don't tell us not to speculate. Of course we're going to speculate in the pub, chatting with our families and our friends. Of course we're going to. So don't tell us not to do something that is a human inevitability. But better than that, more important than that, is don't say that when you don't know. They clearly had no idea whether it was politically motivated or terrorism. They didn't know. So they go, oh, yeah, but there's no indication there is. As if, so then people are going around, you see, when I was getting it in the neck on Twitter all weekend, yeah, see, the police say it's not terrorism or politically motivated. So they said to me, how do you feel now? I said, I feel fine. I know I'm in the right. And I was in the right. You know, it's a sad situation, and I really don't want to have a go at all the hard-working, dedicated coppers in this country. It's not them that infuriate me, and I'm sure you. It's these top cops, the woke chief constables, the senior officers who, for some reason, have taken a political line, who think it's their job to keep peace in the country. You know, don't wind them up. Tell them a little lie just to keep them quiet. It's outrageous. We're not children, and police forces have got to stop treating us like this. What do you think, folks? 03444 99 1000. Now, I mentioned in my monologue, if you went onto Blue Sky, the Be Kind social media site where left-wingers go to agree with each other, and actually some tweets as well on Twitter and Facebook and stuff, some of these left-leaning people, tweeters, were just extraordinary. I mean, so vicious and vile, dancing on Ann Widdecombe's grave and having a go at Reform. Look, you know, Reform UK, Nigel Farage, they've got their problems at the moment. They're on the front pages for different reasons. But the suggestion, these lefties are going around saying that Nigel Farage is using this tragedy. You know, it's come in handy for Reform. this tragedy, this slaughter of Ann Widdecombe, because then they can deflect from their own problems. They're using it to get their problems off the front page. It didn't work if you saw the Sunday Times yesterday. They were also on the front page for their financial allegations against them. So it doesn't work. But what a disgusting thing to say. They're criticising Nigel and all the MPs for going down to Ann Widdecombe's house yesterday to lay flowers and pay their respects. Can somebody tell me exactly what is wrong with that? Why you would criticise that human decency shown by Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, Lee Anderson, all the others? Why would you criticise them for that? Really, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. 03444991000. When we come back, we're going to discuss possibly the worst of these left-wing nasty people. This was a bloke in a dress who works at Aberdeen University who actually tweeted that his name is Heather Herbert, that he hoped Anne had died in agony, handcuffed to her bed. That's from Heather Herbert. His real name is probably Herbert Heather. There's a bloke in a dress, anyway. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
So what do you think of Reform today admitting that they're now paying for 24-hour security for their MPs and high-profile people because of their fear after what's happened to Anne?
I think it is overblown, and I think you can understand why anyone would be afraid. I certainly had death threats during my time as MP for
Overblown? How can it be overblown?
Well, because at the moment we think the police are telling us that there's no reason to think there was a political motive behind the killing of Ann Widdecombe. Members of Parliament serve.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. She's Talk TV's brilliant presenter, host of Triggered. You can see that on YouTube. It's really good. I recommend it. She's Samara Gill. Welcome, Samara.
Hi, Kev. Great to be with you.
Right, stay with hold fire. We're going straight over to the Parliament because we're getting a statement from the Home Secretary.
Ann Widdecombe dedicated her life to politics and public service. For nearly 40 years, she was a fixture of our political life. She brought conviction to our politics, grounded in her profound Catholic faith. She was forthright in her opinions and argued courageously for the things she believed in. But perhaps most of all, she brought an inimitable style to politics. She was forthright and fearless. As Lord Howard of Lymm can attest, she had a memorable turn of phrase, and she was joyful. She thought seriously about ideas, but she did not take herself too seriously, and that allowed her to reach beyond this place and charm the country at large. She was one of those rare politicians who was bigger than politics. There have been so many moving tributes in the last few days, reflecting her impact both within this place and beyond politics. But I think her outlook on life is best summed up by Anne herself. Sitting on Graham Norton's sofa, she said, and I quote, "We get one go this side of eternity, one go. Life is not a dress rehearsal. You take opportunities that you like and you go for it." Anne took her opportunities. She was the proud MP for Maidstone for 23 years, a champion of her constituents. She served the country in government as Minister for Employment and then Prisons, and she took politics out of these ancient walls and became a bona fide TV star. Her contribution to our politics and our national life will never be forgotten. Mr. Speaker, on Wednesday, Ann Widdecombe was murdered in her home. The circumstances of her death are extremely distressing. Counter Terrorism Policing have now taken the lead in the investigation. As Lawrence Taylor, the head of National Counter Terrorism Policing, has said, and I quote, "We now have new information and evidence that means Counter Terrorism Policing is leading the investigation. We are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack." The police now have a suspect in custody, a 28-year-old white British man, and I can confirm to the House that this man was not known to prevent. The police have cautioned against speculating about the case. That is the right thing to do for Anne's family and friends. It is also vital that the police are given the space they need to carry out their work. For now, what matters most is supporting the investigation so that we can see justice delivered for Anne and all who loved her. And I would urge anyone with any information at all to come forward immediately. Mr. Speaker, I know this raises questions about the security of those in public life. I will not be the only one here thinking also of two other beloved members of this House, Jo Cox and Sir David Amess. Politics is a calling for those of us here, but it should not be a dangerous one. And so it is incumbent on the House and the Government to work together to protect those who choose to serve. The Home Office and the police work closely with the Parliamentary Security Department to provide practical advice and support directly to MPs. But we must always be vigilant to changing threats and respond. Security measures are kept under constant review to ensure MPs can carry out their duties safely. And I know that the police intend to issue guidance to MPs soon, and they will be contacting parliamentarians in their constituencies to offer support. I also recently commissioned the former Lord Chancellor, Sir Robert Buckland, to review the lessons from Sir David Amess's murder, including into required improvements to security for MPs working in their constituencies. I recognise the particular concern that the Reform Party will feel today, and of course Nigel Farage, the party's leader. I'm happy to offer a meeting for Mr Farage with the chair of RAVEC, the independent body within the Home Office that manages the security of those in public life. And I will also be looking at what security guidance can be provided to former members of Parliament, which I hope to work with you on, Mr Speaker, as well as those who serve a party outside of this place. Today is a dark day in our political life, but we must also use it as an opportunity to celebrate Ann Widdecombe's memory. She was a unique figure in our politics, a distinctive and devoted public servant, the likes of whom we will rarely, if ever, see again. Anne had a profound faith. Her journey in this life has ended too soon. May she now rest in eternal peace. I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phil.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Home Secretary for advance sight of her statement. I start by offering my deepest condolences to Anne's family and friends. She will be terribly missed. Anne sat as the Conservative MP for Maidstone for nearly a quarter of a century and in the European Parliament for the Brexit Party. She served in government and in opposition, including as Shadow Home Secretary. She always fearlessly spoke her mind. She did not worry about whether her opinion would be popular or would be fashionable. She always said exactly what she believed and exactly what she thought. Her integrity and her fortitude were unmatched. I first met Anne 29 years ago at a university debate, speaking on opposite sides. I was a callow 21-year-old student. She had just left government and was at the height of her powers. I remember starting my speech by asking her to treat me more gently than she had recently treated Michael Howard. Needless to say, I was put very firmly in my place. Anne was also a much-loved celebrity with memorable appearances on Strictly Come Dancing and Celebrity Big Brother, including being whirled around by, I think it was Anton Dubek. So we will all remember Anne fondly as a public figure who was always formidable, she was always charming, and she was always entertaining. Now, Mr. Speaker, as we discuss this appalling murder, we should heed the words of Devon and Cornwall Assistant Chief Constable Matt Longman, who said at the weekend this: "We are aware of online and public speculation, particularly with regard to motive. I urge people not to share or engage with speculation. It is unhelpful and distressing to Anne's friends and family, and particularly harmful to our investigation." A criminal barrister, Dennis Kavanagh, also recently pointed out that speculation makes the police's job harder and in some cases could even prejudice a trial. And I urge everyone debating this issue to keep that in mind. Mr. Speaker, it has just been confirmed by the Home Secretary that Counter Terrorism Police are now leading the murder investigation. So to help avoid that speculation, is there any further information the Home Secretary can properly share about this without prejudicing the investigation? I'd like to thank the police for releasing the information they have so far, including about the identity of the suspect. It is always important to release as much information as possible in the interest of transparency and to avoid misinformation filling the void, as Jonathan Hall KC, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, has said previously. Let me turn now to threats against those in public life. Any threats against MPs who have been democratically elected to represent their constituents or others in public life should be taken extremely seriously. In the last 10 years, 2 MPs, Joe Cox and Sir David Amess, have been murdered. And now a former MP has been murdered as well. The threat is clearly real. I also remember in 2017 when terrorist Khalid Mahmood drove a car into pedestrians along Westminster Bridge, injuring more than 50 people, 4 fatally, and then ran into New Palace Yard, just yards from where we sit here, where he fatally stabbed PC Keith Palmer. That was also an attack on democracy itself. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank you personally for all the work you are doing to protect MPs and those in public life. I know that as the Speaker of the House of Commons, you have made the safety and protection of those in public life your highest priority, and I would like to thank you for that. Yeah. We must redouble our efforts to ensure that public political figures who are MPs and those like Anne who are not MPs always receive the proportionate protection they need. I'd be grateful if the Home Secretary could confirm that she will review all the arrangements with this objective in mind. I believe in this country we should be able to debate each other robustly on important issues, but should also speak to each other in a way that is civil and respectful. Of course, nothing excuses violent attacks on public figures, but we should all also set an example of civility and calm and not inflame. Mr. Speaker, we need people to step up and become MPs and also speak in the public square. Debate and disagreement are what make our country great. Ann Widdecombe exemplified that every minute of her life. I pay tribute to her. I know we will all remember Anne forever.
Yeah. Home Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and let me thank the Shadow Home Secretary both for his own remarks and memories of Ann Widdecombe and also for his questions. Let me say to him that in relation to the new information that has come to light and the progress on the counter-terrorism policing investigation, there is a statement that has been put out by counter-terrorism policing, which I believe has been published online, but I will make sure it is placed in the library of the House as well. well. The main things to draw out for that are the fact, as I said in my statement, that new information and evidence means that they are now leading the investigation and that they are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry in order to establish the motivation of this attack. As soon as more information is available that is capable of being shared without compromising any future trial process, that will be done. So we take seriously, and I know counter-terrorism policing take very seriously the learnings from the summer of 2024, and definitely to heed the call of Jonathan Hall, Casey and others on timely release of information without compromising the ability to bring someone ultimately to justice, which is of course the main aim when such a horror of an attack happens. Let me also, Mr. Speaker, say I would like to echo the remarks made by the Shadow Home Secretary to you, and to thank you personally for all of your efforts in maintaining the safety and security of parliamentarians. I know it's something that you personally worry about and take a deep interest in. Let me also say, given the fast-moving nature of this investigation, I don't want to say anything that will prejudice the direction of travel here. However, there is a question that is raised in this as a result of this murder, which relates not just to the security arrangements for sitting members of Parliament, but for those who have left this place but nevertheless retain a public profile as a result of their political party membership or their political activities. There are also, given the range of new political parties that are contesting the political and democratic space, I think questions about those who are not represented at all here in the House of Commons. And just to reassure you, Mr. Speaker, I will be looking at those arrangements very closely. I will seek to work with Mr. Speaker directly, and my officials will engage with parties across this House and those outside of it to make sure that whatever changes are made are done so in a manner that covers the multiple range of threats that we see. Mr. Speaker, I think there has been a step change in the security of parliamentarians over the last few years, but I think that it is a reflection of the multi-layered threats that our democracy faces and that our active individuals in democracy face, that this is not something we can ever take for granted or believe is settled. It is something that we have to continually review, which we do, and there are new questions that are raised, which I will make it my personal business to answer, and I will update the House in due course.
Of the House, Diana.
The Home Secretary will be aware of how important it is to make sure that members of this House get the protection and the defence they need. At one point, I got as many threats and abuse and threats of violence as all the other women MPs put together. So I think it's important that we take this issue seriously. I think we should recognise, and I can speak to that because of my years in the House, that this has got much, much worse with the rise of online activity. And so we need to find a way to make some of these online companies more accountable for the threats and the violence that they allow on their platforms. And we need to make it aware, as I just said, the importance of protecting members of Parliament.
Home Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, let me say to the Mother of the House that I think that given the sheer range of threats that have been made to her personally, it is a testament to her personal bravery that she has continued to be an active parliamentarian. But it should not take such levels of bravery to just be able to represent the people of your constituency. And she is absolutely right that we must always make sure that our security arrangements are able to keep pace with the changing nature of threats that members of Parliament are facing. Let me assure her we, as the government, will do that, and we work very closely with the Parliamentary Security Department in order to make sure that that is the case, so that all members can make their contribution just as effectively and for just as long as she has.
Some Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The news about Ann Widdecombe is shocking and deeply distressing. My thoughts are with her family, including her nephew, the Reverend Roger Widdecombe, my constituent, and his wife Hannah, who lead the congregation at St Paul's Church in Cheltenham. Her death is all the more tragic given what we now know about the upsetting and disturbing circumstances. Ann Widdecombe was a conviction politician.
We'll leave that debate. We're hoping, I'm not sure who's in the chamber for Reform UK, but we're hoping that a Reform UK MP will be called by the Speaker to join the discussion, because that will be interesting. I think I saw Richard Tice there, although I can't quite confirm that. So we'll return to the House, to the House of Commons, if and when a Reform UK MP is chosen to speak. But in the meantime, let's go back over. We only spoke to her about a nanosecond, about 20 minutes ago. Back over to Talk presenter Samara Gill. Hi, Samara.
Hi, Kev. I'm still reeling from hearing Diane Abbott lecture others on inflammatory language, considering she's the one who said, "I hate to think what would happen if Farage ever became Prime Minister." She called Boris Johnson a liar and a racist. She called Donald Trump a very ugly man. I mean, she's someone who really does dish out a lot of vile vitriol to people, so it's quite funny to see her in the...
Yeah, we were wondering why she was called, but it's because she's the mother of the house. It's a tradition, so she gets first dibs, as it were. I'd be far more interested to hear what a Reform UK MP had to say, but of course she chose that opportunity to once again say, well, let's crack down on social media, let's crack down on free speech. That'll sort out security for MPs. They never miss an opportunity, do they? I thought the most interesting point to arise from what Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, had to say there was that this guy, this 28-year-old white British man, we think from Rotherham, who has been arrested, was not known to the Prevent Counter Terrorism programme. That's unusual, because they usually are. So it looks as if this guy came completely out of left field, no record of him whatsoever.
We were hearing reports over the weekend that this individual, if it is the same individual that we're talking about here, became disenfranchised kind of after the death of his father, became a bit of a hermit. He did have some learning difficulties, but no, he wasn't referred to Prevent, which you're right is a really, really interesting thing. And you know, Shabana Mahmood raised, obviously, Joe Cox and David Amos, which does make you think that this attack might have been of a similar nature. She said that it was in extremely distressing circumstances that Ann Widdecombe died, which tells you a lot about just how horrific her murder might have been, a lot more so than we were originally led to believe, I think, before the weekend. And, of course, the new information that has been brought to her shows that now counter-terrorism is taking over. And it was interesting, she offered Farage a meeting with Ravek. I mean, honestly...
Here's the thing on that. Here's the thing on that. You know, oh, yes, of course, it's quite right that security for MPs has been brought into sharp focus. I'm offering Nigel Farage, Reform UK leader, a meeting about this as soon as possible. Will they discuss the fact that back in September, just a few months ago, 75% of the parliamentary security offered to Nigel Farage was taken away from him? Do you think they'll discuss that? And do you think that that 75%, under the circumstances, should be reattributed to Nigel Farage? This is ridiculous, isn't it?
It's like putting a Band-Aid over a bullet hole, and they did that after Charlie Kirk's death, which I think really twisted the knife in more to Farage's security case, the fact that they keep taking it away and offering him merely a meeting with Ravek after this has happened. I mean, Ann Widdecombe was Reform UK spokesperson. They are inundated with threats every single day, and I just thought that the response was quite sort of, yes, we're going to offer you more security, but how about addressing the root cause of the issue? People like David Lammy sitting in their front cabinet, someone who called Farage a person who flirted with the Hitler Youth, which is just an untrue statement. That went all around the media. Zach Polanski, who's described Farage as a Trump-loving, science-denying grifter. You know, people called Anne a bigot, homophobic, transphobic. I mean, this is someone whose two best friends were gay men. It's just blatantly untrue that she was a homophobic person. And even post-mortem, you know, on Sky News, Adam Bolton referring to her as a virginal spinster.
And an old maid.
Exactly. How about we tone down the rhetoric a little bit towards right-wing people? Stop painting these politicians as threats to democracy. You know, what would happen if they were to get in? We must do everything we can to prevent this. It's actually really dangerous language that we are finding may just have real-world consequences. And what's Shabana Mahmood doing? She's just offering a bit of extra security. She doesn't want to address the fundamental issue here, Kev.
Yeah, this cuts to the heart of what's been going on. The left, ever since Friday, have been accusing Reform and Nigel Farage of kind of cashing in on the Ann Widdecombe horror, of exploiting it to deflect from their own problems in terms of allegations about the party's finances and, of course, Nigel Farage allegedly enriching himself. So those allegations, you know, are serious. They're still on the front pages. But the idea that Farage should say to his troops, to his party and his MPs, right, let's whip this up so they don't talk about us. They even got criticised yesterday for going down to Devon to lay flowers and pay respect to their fallen colleague Ann Widdecombe. I mean, for God's sake, that is outrageous. It's outrageous. I'm not here to bat for Reform, but give them some credence here for basic human emotions. They're upset. They're shocked. Ann Widdecombe, their colleague, was brutally murdered in her own house, and yet the left conspire to attack them for going down to Devon to pay their respects. What the hell is going on?
Truer words were never spoken, Kev, honestly, as you're completely right. It's just a shambles. It really is. I mean, the way that the police and Keir Starmer gaslit the public over the weekend, be it also Reform MPs and people close within Reform's circle. I mean, we both know quite a few people within Reform's circle that really would benefit from knowing whether or not this was a terror-related incident and are fearing for their safety as we speak. And the fact that they kind of tried to put the lid on this and say, and we, you know, the media was learning he drove 300 miles, he had a wooden baton that he carried with him, and yet they were still towing the line, oh no, it might not be terrorism, you know, it could have just been a robbery, even though her house was left completely untouched, nothing was taken. I think it's really irresponsible, but it also shows how shambolic the police force actually is behind the scenes. I mean, I've got a lot of time for coppers, people on the front lines trying to do their thing. I know that this is a very fast-paced investigation that they're dealing with, and a very public one at that. But how dare they gaslight us? This entire weekend.
They didn't know. When they told us, oh, there's no indication that it's terrorism or politically motivated, they didn't know. They had no idea. So why say that? And now they look ridiculous, and the Devon and Cornwall police have been taken off the case. We're waiting for the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, to finally call someone from Reform UK. Richard Tice is in there chomping at the bit, waiting to say something, but he hasn't been called yet. So we're going to go to break in just a second. I'm just going to leave you with this. The safeguarding minister, Natalie Fleet, who on Friday accused Reform, Nigel Farage and his Reform MP colleagues of faux outrage over Ann Widdecombe's death. She said, oh, Farage and his gang are bin men. It's faux outrage and so on and so forth. Yes, right. Nigel Farage and his gang of bin men get the same security as the rest of us. Sick of the faux outrage. She has now apologised and said, apologies for the offence caused by my earlier tweet, which I have now deleted. Just a footnote, Natalie Fleet, the safeguarding women for Minister for Women's Safety, voted against the rape gang inquiry. She's shaping up to be quite a powerhouse figure, isn't she? Listen, we're going to go to break, Samara. Stay where you are. And when we come back, we'll discuss possibly the worst of these left-wing be kind types for slamming reform and slamming at... Oh, wait a minute, I think... OK, well, we need to talk in a second. I think Richard Tice is about to be called, but we do need to talk about this bloke called... Oh, here goes Tice. I'll come back to you tomorrow.
And anguish at the loss of our Anne, and also the manner in which she has been taken from us. She was a colossus in public life, in political life, a legend adored and loved by millions and millions of people, including my own late mother, for whom she spoke so very warmly of Anne. She was a remarkable lady. She had an incredible work ethic. She would think nothing of going the length and breadth of the country to speak at rallies. She was an incredible orator who always spoke without notes. Absolutely remarkable. And her philosophy to life, the Home Secretary touched on it, she viewed life as, it's not a dress rehearsal. You grasp every opportunity. You go for it as far as possible. Her career, her political career here, Mr. Speaker, I checked earlier, in 23 years, she made over 8,000 contributions in this place, and some remarkable witty interventions. When an honourable member said that she should disappear with her broomstick, she immediately replied, "I have my broomstick and I will cast a spell over you." and that was her nature. Likewise, her media career was also remarkable. She was an agony aunt in 2 programmes. She was a most deserving semi-finalist in Strictly Come Dancing, for sure. And of course, Celebrity Big Brother. And she was an incredible panto performer that was adored by so many. Her conviction, her passion, and her advocacy for free speech was to be commended. I had the honour of working with her for the last 7 years, and despite being a foot taller than her, I somehow always found myself looking up to her. And she also, when she phoned, I always stood up on my toes, incoming, beware. And that was Anne, and we will miss her dearly. And I also think that the Scottish whisky industry has lost a very discerning customer. And maybe there could be a limited edition Widder's Whisky, where the tasting notes may reflect unique, unforgettable flavours, a fiery, spicy series of tones, but a blend to be treasured to eternity. May she rest in peace, Mr. Speaker. And I just asked the Home Secretary in conclusion, could she ensure that the Counter Terrorism Unit keep us updated on as regular possible basis? And given the nature of these things, we all want our police forces to do brilliantly, of course. Would it be wise, when considering motivation, when giving us early updates, to keep things being open-ended as opposed to motive, as opposed to ruling things out too quickly that may then end up being ruled back in? Yeah.
Well, let me first say to the honourable gentleman that was a very...
that was quite a speech by Richard Tice on behalf of the Reform UK Party. He's, of course, deputy leader, paying tribute to the remarkable Ann Widdecombe, who has died in such shocking circumstances, brutally murdered at her home in Devon. Let's go to break. When we come back, I think we'll resume our conversation with Samara Gill and carry on covering this important story. So stay where you are.
what do you think of Reform today admitting that they're now paying for 24-hour security for their MPs and high-profile people because of their fear after what's happened to Anne?
I think it is overblown, and I think you can understand why anyone would be afraid. I certainly had death threats during my time as MP for
Overblown? How can it be overblown?
Well, because at the moment we think the police are telling us that there's no reason to think there was a political motive behind the killing of Ann Widdecombe. Members of Parliament serve.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Samara Gill. Hi, Samara, again.
Hi,
very quickly, let me get your reaction to Aberdeen University worker, a former Labour candidate, someone called Heather Herbert, who's in fact a bloke in a dress, probably real name Herbert Heather or something, who actually tweeted after the death of Ann Widdecombe some good news for once. I hope it was an extremely painful death. I hope she was handcuffed to the bed as she screamed in agony. She went on, this bloke, it's not she, he went on to say, I don't want to see anyone murdered, but I'm still glad she's dead. I'm not a hypocrite. I posted that before the murder investigation was launched. I'm a nobody. I have no power to do anything. Ann Widdecombe was able to and made the lives of ordinary people hell. No, she didn't. What is wrong with this person, this bloke, Heather Herbert? I mean, he is representative of so many other of these left-wing people who are dancing on this poor old lady's grave.
Yeah, I mean, he very much speaks in a very masculine sort of tone when speaking about death. It's crazy how he sort of justifies that he didn't know she was murdered and that's why it was okay. I mean, he even doubled down and says, I don't want to see anyone murdered, but I'm still glad she is dead. What? I mean, that's not much of an apology in my mind. And, you know, political disagreement is one thing, but celebrating murder is something else entirely. And it's something the left has become all too comfortable in doing. Can you imagine a reaction if someone had written this after the death of a Labour MP? I mean, they'd be locked up for incitement to violence immediately.
These are the Be Kind crowd. Do you think... I mean, I'm afraid, I have to say, I think she should be allowed to say this. That's freedom of speech. That's freedom of speech. But what do you think the university, Aberdeen University, should do? Do you think they should sack her? They say they are aware of the incident and the concerns that have been raised, and we are looking into this as a matter of priority.
I don't agree with wanting anyone sacked, but I also don't think someone who's got that attitude towards someone dying should be anywhere near students or anywhere near a teaching facility and shouldn't be allowed to spread their word or their so-called wisdom. So I think that it should really, really, really be looked into. If she's genuinely sorry, okay, he or she. But honestly, this is the type of infected virus that is in our universities, Kev.
Absolutely. I don't approve of hate crimes, but if we must have them, surely this person, this guy, Heather Herbert, is guilty of a hate crime. Samara, thank you so much. Stay tuned, much more to come.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. We're going to go through some of the big stories of the day, or frankly, the big story of the day, which is, of course, the brutal murder of Ann Widdecombe and all that has happened since. MPs currently in the House of Commons standing to pay tribute to their fallen former colleague. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, gave a particularly quite moving speech to remember his colleague. Now, let's go over to Simon Danjuk, former Labour MP and now Reform UK. Welcome, Simon.
Good to be with you, Kevin.
Good to have you. Well, listen, before we start, the Home Secretary, Mahmood, has just made a statement to the House. The headline, the news line on it was that this guy, this 28-year-old white man from Rotherham who has been arrested and who now seems to be at the centre of a Counter Terrorism Squad investigation. That investigation has been taken off Devon and Cornwall Police after, frankly, a pretty farcical weekend on their part. But let's have a little look at what Shabana Mahmood was saying.
Mr. Speaker, on Wednesday, Ann Widdecombe was murdered in her home. The circumstances of her death are extremely distressing. Counter-terrorism policing have now taken the lead in the investigation. As Lawrence Taylor, the head of National Counter-Terrorism Policing, has said, and I quote, "We now have new information and evidence that means counter-terrorism policing is leading the investigation. We are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack." The police now have a suspect in custody, a 28-year-old white British man, and I can confirm to the House that this man was not known to Prevent.
That's quite unusual, actually, Simon. Usually they've been investigated by Prevent about 5 times by the time they actually do something bad. So obviously this guy came right out of the blue, no record of him whatsoever. But what a farcical weekend on the part of Devon and Cornwall Police. We need to do something about this. All the cops, chief constables in particular, seem to have appointed themselves into the role of keeping the public calm. Don't work the public up. Don't get them excited. Don't get them agitated. Pour oil on troubled waters. So they make this statement Friday and Saturday, you know, there's no suggestion, no indication it was politically motivated or terrorism, to which we're all saying, so let's get this right then. Some guy got into a car in Rotherham, went on a 300-mile joyride, happened to end up in Ann Widdecombe's house, where she was brutally murdered. So he went on a 300-mile joyride, which ended in random tragedy. So apart from anything else, what the Devon and Cornwall Police were saying to us insulted our intelligence. But why on earth were they making that statement when they didn't know? There's no indication that it's politically motivated or terrorism. They didn't know, as we found out today, and they've had the investigation taken off them. Cops have got to stop doing this, haven't they?
Absolutely right, Kevin. The quality of policing in Britain is just going downhill, isn't it? Devon and Cornwall Police, from what we know and what we've seen, they arrested the wrong person by all accounts initially, and they quickly came out and said that it didn't involve politics. But they were just guessing at that. And again, when they then arrested the person in Rotherham, they said it didn't involve politics. And now that's been turned on its head, and we're being told that the anti-terrorist unit is carrying out the investigation. And so it looks much more sinister. Now, for whatever reasons, Devon and Cornwall Police putting out these false statements just causes confusion. I mean, it's just not the way to communicate, is it? But it happens time and time again. We need a major overhaul of policing in this country. And I have to say, I think it often stops with the chief constables themselves in terms of what role they think they have to play. Far too politicised a role, in my opinion. They need to get on with the basics of actually investigating, policing, doing detective work, making arrests. Stop trying to manage the media. That's not the job. That's not their job. Leave it to the politicians themselves.
Yeah, they're not only trying to manage the media, they're trying to manage the British public. Oh, you know, better keep those plebs calm. Don't want them getting all worked up and excited. We could get trouble. That's not their job. It isn't their job. I mean, you know, they talk about, oh, we don't want people spreading misinformation. I'll tell you what Devon and Cornwall police did over the weekend. They spread misinformation. I mean, they did put in the caveat saying, but we're keeping an open mind. But most people, I know this because I was getting a real pile on Twitter from all these lefties saying, the police have told you it wasn't political and it wasn't terrorism, and they've told you not to speculate. And I'm saying, well, excuse me if I don't trust the police. Why don't you trust the police? Well, let's see now, shall we? Southport, Henry Novak, and so many other cases of two-tier policing. This weekend will have done nothing to help the situation in terms of the public's increasing lack of trust in our various police forces. It's not good, but they don't help themselves by their abysmal, almost farcical behaviour over this past weekend.
Absolutely right. And so you've got Devon and Cornwall police telling Reform politicians who were very close to Ann Widdecombe not to speculate, and yet we then learn that police force was speculating. That's exactly what they were doing.
Exactly right.
Speculating about what the motive was, and they came to the wrong conclusion. That's quite clear now. I mean, there's a big issue here about politicians and former politicians' safety. And I don't believe for 1 minute that the police are up to the job of providing that safety for British politicians. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of talk. Shabana Mahmood boldly announcing that she'd offered Nigel Farage a meeting with RAVEC. Yeah, that's the security panel that deals with matters of personal protection from royals to prominent figures, particularly politicians. So she's offered offered Nigel Farage a meeting with RAVEC and indeed herself. Do you think she intends to restore the 75% of security that was taken away from Nigel Farage back in September? Do you think that's what on her agenda? Because they ought to be talking about this. As you say, over the weekend we had a Labour politician, Natalie Fleet, for example, the safeguarding minister in charge of women's safety, accusing Nigel Farage and his colleagues of being a bunch of bin men indulging in faux outrage. Come on. She was their friend. She was their colleague. Can we just allow these Reform MPs to be upset? And can we not criticise them? Because they were criticised for going down to Devon, all of them, to lay flowers and pay their respects. They got slammed for that. Oh, you're just trying to deflect from your other problems. You're trying to get your money problems, the controversy over your £5 million off the front pages, aren't you? What disgusting allegations those are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ann Widdecombe and I never met that I can recall, but I've been spending time over the last few days with Reform activists, doing some work with Reform activists. And it's fair to say they've been devastated by this murder. There's no doubt about that. They've been really upset about it. And you can understand why. Many of them have known Ann really well over the years. And I have to say, this Labour minister's comments, Natalie
Fleet, yeah.
Comments are absolutely appalling. She's now deleted the tweet, which is the right thing to do. But to suggest that people in Reform are playing politics with this murder is just outrageous. But it's what we've come to expect from those on the left. We have to take politicians' safety much more serious. I've been in politics 40 years. I've received funeral wreaths. I've received death threats of various kinds. I stood for reform. You might recall, Kevin, I stood for reform in February 2024 in the Rochdale parliamentary by-election. I received a death threat there, and it took us 2 years to successfully prosecute the perpetrator, which I'm pleased to say, but it was only because of my perseverance. The CPS, Crime Prosecution Service, wanted to let him off on mental health grounds, but I had to campaign to get him successfully prosecuted. But this is what we face on a regular basis, and I don't believe for 1 minute that police are up, or this current government are up to the job of protecting particularly reform politicians.
Yeah, and I think that the cops have really got to sort this out, because they do it time and time again. They make all these announcements aimed at quelling public disquiet, keeping us all quiet and don't speculate, it's distressing for the family and all that. Well, don't treat us like children. And frankly, in terms of Devon and Cornwall Police, just don't lie to us. They lied to us at Southport. Oh, this is a British kid born in Cardiff. Oh, really? Yeah, that really summed up Axel Rudikabana, didn't it? Didn't need any more details about that. Used to be a choir boy. Here's a picture of him looking very, very sweet when he was 12 years old. They've got to stop this deception. The point is, Simon, they didn't need, the Devon and Cornwall Police didn't need to say anything about whether it was politically motivated or terrorism. They didn't need to say that because they didn't know. And yet they felt the need to tell us that it almost certainly wasn't politically motivated or terrorism. Absolute disgrace, farcical. And they now have the ignominy and the shame of having that investigation taken off them and given to some people who might know what they're doing, and that is, of course, the Counter Terrorism Squad. Devon and Cornwall Police recently had their investigative abilities dismissed as below par by the police watchdog. So they're not particularly good at investigations, and I think they've proved that over the weekend.
Absolutely. No, I think this really dents Devon and Cornwall Police's credibility. They're certainly underperforming, and that's been known for quite some time, and they've been found out in this instance. The good news from a reform perspective is that the party takes security and protection of its politicians very seriously. I referred to the Rochdale by-election there. As soon as the death threat came through, credit to Richard Tice, who was the leader at the time. He ensured that we had 24-hour security personnel with us for the remainder of the by-election. No expense was spared, but it does cost money, and I do believe that reform politicians are more vulnerable to these sorts of attacks, and I think that's what we've seen over the last few days. But reform, you know, at least reform are prepared to put money in, because I don't believe the police service in any of the constabularies are taking this as seriously as they should.
It's grotesque that they took 75% of Nigel Farage's parliamentary security away last September. It's grotesque, it's obscene. Why would they do that? It's quite clear. He's arguably the #1 target as an MP for the leader of Reform UK, and yet they took most of his security away, and now they complain that he's going to have to fund himself, and he keeps saying he's going to use that £5 million to do that. That's a different issue. But the accusation that Reform UK, Nigel Farage and his fellow MPs were using the brutal murder of Ann Widdecombe to get themselves off the front pages in terms of these financial allegations is just disgusting. It's disgusting. Talking of disgusting, what is your reaction, Simon, to a bloke called Heather Herbert? That's a trans woman, man in a dress. He works at Aberdeen University. He tweeted on his Blue Sky account, you know, where Be Kind Labourites go to agree with each other. He tweeted some good news for once. Talking about Ann Widdecombe's death, some good news for once. I hope it was an extremely painful death. I hope she was handcuffed to the bed as she screamed in agony. What's wrong with that person?
Well, if they're still in a job at a university, then it tells us all we need to know. I saw those comments, and this guy is just out of order, isn't he? Beyond belief. I understand he's played some part in politics.
It's a Labour candidate at one point, apparently.
Yeah. Exactly. And this is the left, you know, in British politics. They used to talk about the Conservative Party, and I'm not a defender of the Conservative Party, but they used to call it the nasty party. Listen, I've been around politics. The nasty people in British politics are very much on the left. And that's exactly what we're seeing over the last few days. And this is a perfect example of that. But his employer, I think, should be taking action. You know, this is somebody who's playing a role in higher education. I mean, it's appalling, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit of a free speech absolutist, so I think that Heather Herbert, or is it Herbert Heather, who knows, has got the right to say this. It's disgusting. It's insulting. It's really vile. But she's got, don't say she, it's not a she, he's got the right to say it. But it is within the remit of Aberdeen University to decide whether or not they want someone like this working for them. You might also argue I'd never call for hate crimes because I don't believe in hate crimes. But if we are to have those laws, surely this doesn't pass the sniff test, does it? What she's tweeted.
No, not at all. But she's not. He is not.
Yes, get this right. It's a he. Yeah, sorry, my mistake.
Peter Tatchell has made some derogatory comments, if I'm not mistaken, and even those that have been sympathetic to the situation have started their comments by couching it in the fact that they never agreed with her politics. Listen, you don't need to say that. Just show some sympathy for the situation. I mean, it sounds like a brutal death as well, a murder. I mean, it's just utterly appalling. And people in reform, the ones that I've been with over the last few days, are absolutely devastated by it. And, you know, the impact of Devon and Cornwall Police saying that politics didn't feature in this has also added harm to the injury, you know, because it was there for everybody to see, wasn't it? It just didn't seem right.
What it led to, Simon, you're right, you're exactly right. It led to Nigel Farage and all the other Reform MPs, and indeed the party generally, getting it in the neck. Everyone said, look, the police have told you it's not politically motivated. Stop trying to exploit it. It's not terrorism. What do you think you're doing? And so for most of yesterday, Reform UK looked really bad because of what Devon and Cornwall Police were saying. Now, I know people in Reform, and they were telling me privately all day yesterday, we are absolutely convinced this was politically motivated. As I said, did some guy in Rotherham just go for a random 300-mile joyride which ended in accidental tragedy? Doesn't sound right to me. Obviously it adds up in the craven minds of Devon and Cornwall Police, but not to the rest of us. So Nigel, Richard Tyson, all the gang, they all went down to Devon to lay flowers, and they were getting attacked for trying to exploit what wasn't political or terrorism. Well, guess what? The Counter Terrorism Squad are now in charge of this investigation. It's been taken out of the hands of Devon and Cornwall Police. So there clearly is fears or grounds for suspicion that this was terrorism and or politically motivated. Quite extraordinary. So lay off Reform about this and just, I'm talking generally here, just give these people the chance to grieve over a friend and colleague and stop being quite so inhuman about this. It's disgusting, it really is. Simon, very pleased to have you on the show as always. Thank you very much. Simon Danjit there, former Labour MP, now Reform UK. Tell me what you think about Heather Herbert, or is it Herbert Heather, the bloke in the dress at Aberdeen University who tweeted on Blue Sky, posted on Blue Sky, that he hoped that Ann Widdecombe died screaming in agony, handcuffed to a bed. He hoped it was an extremely painful death. What kind of a person is that? How does anybody end up posting stuff like that? 0344 499 1000. When we come back, we're going to move over to Andy Burnham, who is about to become our Prime Minister, unhindered by democracy in 1 week's time, he made a statement towards the end of last week, which we would have covered this story on Friday had it not been for the breaking story of Ann Widdecombe's brutal murder. He made a statement condemning his party's response to the October the 7th atrocity, saying that the party got it wrong. Well, what does he mean? Keir Starmer said we stand with Israel over this. Does he think that's wrong? 1,200 innocent Jews murdered, raped, beheaded, babies beheaded. Andy Burnham thinks it was wrong for Keir Starmer to say he stood with Israel after that. What are we talking about here? Is Andy Burnham just like Jeremy Corbyn, only a slightly better-looking version with a better haircut? I don't know. We'll talk about that next. 03444991000.
So what do you think of Reform today admitting that they're now paying for 24-hour security for their MPs and high-profile people because of their fear after what's happened to Ann?
I think it is overblown, and I think you can understand why anyone would be afraid. I certainly had death threats during my time as MP for
Overblown? How could it be overblown?
Well, because at the moment we think the police are telling us that there's no reason to think there was a political motive behind the killing of Ann Widdecombe. Members of Parliament serve.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. He is the Chief Executive of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, Gideon Falter. Welcome, Gideon. As you know, we were going to have you on the show on Friday, but the shocking murder of Ann Widdecombe sort of dominated our agenda. So good to have you back today, because I still think this is well worth talking about. Andy Burnham last week apologised for Labour's initial response to Israel's military action in Gaza, saying the party did not get it right and needs to do better under his leadership. Now, what that adds up to is, in a rare statesman-like moment after October the 7th, fair play to Keir Starmer, he stood up and said, you know, the slaughter of 1,200 innocent Jews, women raped, babies beheaded, we stand by Hamas, we stand four square with Israel over this. Quite right too. Andy Burnham is now saying that was wrong, and in his disgusting statement, I would suggest, he never once mentioned Hamas or October the 7th. I guess my question to you, Gideon, is do you fear that in Andy Burnham, with this kind of statement, we've got nothing much more than a slightly better looking version of Jeremy Corbyn?
I mean, I can't tell you how many people in the Jewish community forwarded that clip to me, and the emotions that sort of came out of that, because obviously Andy Burnham is soon to become our Prime Minister, and I thought the timing of this was very telling. This is not something which apparently could wait until he actually becomes Prime Minister. This isn't something that could wait until he's appointed a Foreign Secretary, and something that could be delivered as part of a proper thought-through announcement about various different matters of international politics and international affairs that actually directly affect us here in Britain. This was a special message which had to come out urgently, apparently, on social media right now, and which concerned one country, Israel, a country where Britain has no sway, where whatever Andy Burnham says will have practically no influence whatsoever. And the only place that Andy Burnham's statement will have any impact is here in Britain. And I felt, looking at that this is something which is likely to be born of politics. There is a lot of pressure on politicians at the moment to, as loudly as possible, focus on Israel. Israel is one of the most debated matters in our parliament, despite the fact that we have absolutely zero influence over there. It's one of the most debated matters in our parliament. And this kind of Israel mania is gripping our politics at the same time as Jews are literally losing their lives over the fanning of flames here at home. And one can look at all sorts of things about the content of Andy Burnham's speech, but I would pick out two. One is the fact that he had to urgently get this statement out just on Israel. That to me looks like a very strange order of priorities, and perhaps talks to the kinds of pressure that he's under. And if he's under pressure, one then has to ask, well, who's that from? And the second thing is that, this is something where Keir Starmer, as you say, did say straight after October 7th that this was an appalling act of terrorism. And indeed, it was actually the worst anti-Semitic atrocity since the Holocaust. How can Andy Burnham make a statement saying that they got it wrong?
That was wrong.
Without going into any more detail. He didn't go into any more detail about what he thought was wrong and what he would have done. He just said they got it wrong and sort of left it open-ended. And then gives us some platitudes about how, anti-Semitism has no place in society and we must all condemn it. It's such an irresponsible thing to do, and it leaves so many question marks.
Shall we, let's remind ourselves of his Gaza statement towards the end of last week.
We must also be clear in our criticism of what has happened in Gaza. I know many people feel that at the start of Israel's military action in Gaza, my party didn't get it right, and I am sorry about that. The response has too often not been good enough. We need to do better. Yes, we have taken some important steps. These include recognising the Palestinian state, placing sanctions on Israeli ministers and imposing waves of sanctions on violent settlers and the organisations that support them. I also fully support the restrictions on arms licences to make sure that no British bombs or bullets can be used by the IDF in Gaza or in the West Bank. But let's be honest, the UK was too slow to call for a ceasefire, and we must now do more to strengthen our approach. Israel continues to violate the ceasefire agreement, killing innocent Palestinians. We're seeing a surge in settler violence in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and the continued expansion of illegal settlements, displacing Palestinian communities. And Netanyahu's government is clearly attempting to make a two-state solution impossible. That's why we need to do more, which includes looking at further sanctions, both on those involved in the violence in Gaza, but also looking at measures to ban trade in goods with illegal settlements.
I think, Gideon, that is really chilling. Chilling for the Jewish community in Britain, chilling for the people of Israel, chilling for Jews everywhere. I mean, I think it's a terrifying statement by this man.
I mean, just look at the announcements that have had to be made today and contrast it with Andy Burnham's statement. Today, the government has pledged £250 million over 3 years for policing to try and protect Jews in the UK. Now, we obviously want it to be £0 per year. We don't want there to have to be special policing to protect Jews in the UK. But such is the fervour of the mob at the moment and the degree of extremism in our country that this £250 million is actually essential. And Jews have been losing their lives for the first time. Over the last year, we've seen terrorist attack after terrorist attack against Jews in this country. And so, on the one hand, we've got this need for vast spending, which still is not going to be enough unless it's actually accompanied by proper political will to go after these extremists at their source. And by the way, I should also add, it's not just Jews who are worried about this. I think the vast majority of people watching today will be aware of how bad extremism has got in this country and what needs to actually be done to deal with it. And then you also look at this announcement today that finally, after we campaigned against anti-Semitism, but many others also in the Jewish community have teamed up with former security chiefs in the UK and Iranian dissidents in the UK to finally get the government to come kicking and screaming pretty much to finally ban Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps here in England, here in Britain.
Yeah.
And so those two announcements come today. And then on the other hand, you've got Andy Burnham saying, actually, we've done too much. We've got it completely wrong. And what we ought to have really done is we ought to have reined ourselves in a little bit. And I don't know what he keeps saying we got it wrong. What does he think he got wrong? Does he mean that there should have been no support for Israel whatsoever?
That's my interpretation, Gideon, that when Keir Starmer, as I say, a rare outbreak of statesmanship on his part, stood foursquare with Israel after, as you say, the worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust, Andy Burnham says that was wrong. If you bear with me, can we just watch the Prime Minister? He spoke to members of the Jewish community earlier today in the Downing Street Garden about this initiative that the government's going to spend £250 million protecting Jewish communities in England and Wales. Let's listen to the Prime Minister.
And that's why we've had to act across government to keep Jewish communities safe. And it's the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do. I'm proud of doing it. But I'm so sad also that we have to do it, that we have to say these are the further acts on security that we have to take. But we must, whether it's tackling anti-Semitism in our communities, in our schools, in our universities, in our hospitals, and of course online as well.
I'll tell you why they have to spend this money. It's because of attitudes propagated by the future Prime Minister. He'll be our Prime Minister as of next Monday. This kind of, 1,200 Jewish people were slaughtered, raped, babies beheaded. But, I mean, we went right over the top, didn't we, standing with Israel? I mean, we didn't have to go that far. It is that kind of attitude that leads to the necessity to spend £250 million protecting our Jewish communities, isn't it?
I mean, look, there are all sorts of international matters that actually affect us here in Britain. And I would say that what is going on thousands of miles away in the Middle East, in conflicts that we cannot have any influence over, where we hold no sway whatsoever, that is not something which you would expect the probable next Prime Minister of this country to be rushing out a statement on, just on that one thing. I haven't heard him speaking out on foreign policy matters.
Exactly right,
yeah. And so when he comes out with that, and you look at the situation across the country, he's not alone. There are lots of people who are gripped with an obsession with what is going on with the Jewish state, with Israel. And if they were looking at that amongst a wider world picture, where they were articulating a wider foreign policy view, you might understand it. But it's the fact that Israel is constantly singled out. You realize it is the baying of a mob which has Israel mania and Jews on the brain. And what it does is it results in an environment in which anybody who is Jewish, who is a Zionist, who is supportive of the state of Israel, even people who aren't Jewish, who are supportive of the state of Israel, just to exist, just to be able to live a life where things like October 7th and the massacre of 1,200 people and the taking of 250 odd hostages, just to be able to live a life where that doesn't happen, that is considered to be too much. And the fact that we're now in this world where this is constantly singled out, you need to be looking at where we have consequence. Britain has no consequence over there. We only have consequence here. And Andy Burnham, I fear, will have excited extremists. This will be music to their ears, because they will look at this and saying, and see Andy Burnham saying, I'm with you. Israel is the most important thing going on at the moment. I want you to know that I'm on your side. And I think that will embolden extremists here in the UK, no matter what the content of his actual message is. It will excite them, the fact that he is completely focused on Israel in his first foreign policy statement. I think it's a very, very concerning step to have taken place. And I really think that if you look at the reaction to it, it's of people in the Jewish community who are afraid, and it's extremists who are excited.
Absolutely. Gideon, just to let you know, some of us still stand with Israel. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Gideon Falter, their chief executive of the campaign against anti-Semitism. Yeah, it was not good news for Jews in this country when Andy Burnham, as Gideon Falter quite rightly says, for no apparent reason, just stood up and said we shouldn't really have supported Israel after October the 7th. What a thing to say. 0344 499 1000. Next up, we need to talk about the World Cup, but it's taken on political ramifications. Argentina ahead of our semi-final clash on Wednesday evening with Argentina is demanding new talks in order for them to take over the illegitimately occupied, that's their words, not mine, Falkland Islands. They say this that the Brits have got no right to be there. Bear in mind, Argentines have never lived in the Falkland Islands. So we need to talk about that, and we will after these messages. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, World Cup talk, actually, all the way to 6 o'clock. But before we talk to Sean Custis of The Sun, who's over in New York, about the football aspect of it, there's a backdrop to the grudge match between England and Argentina, the semi-final on Wednesday night. And let's talk about it with defence and security analyst, former defence attaché in Kabul, in Afghanistan, Simon Diggins. Welcome, Simon. You didn't work in Argentina, did you?
No, I have been to the Falkland Islands, but I did not work in the Argentine.
Look, there's a bit of brinkmanship going on here, but once again, the Argentinians, this time their foreign minister, has stood up 3 days before this big match on Wednesday to say, you know, it's time for Britain to give back the Falklands. They're artificially occupied by Brits. They're ours, they're the Malvinas, give them back. Now, you know, we all know that in 1982 we fought quite a war in order to prevent the Argentinians taking over the Falklands, and in case they've forgotten the result of that match, we won. we thrashed them. So they're still ours. The people who live on the Falkland Islands, you know, a very remote set of islands in the South Atlantic off the coast of Argentina, are British. They have British passports. They want to be British. The Argentinians have never lived on what they call the Malvinas, the Falkland Islands. So, frankly, they can put up and shut up, can't they?
Yeah, Kevin, good afternoon. Yeah, you're quite right. It's a complicated history. The islands were first spotted by an Englishman back in the 1590s. The first landing on the islands was in the 1690s, and that's when they got the first name, the Falkland Islands. The man who did that is a guy called John Strong, but he was sponsored by Viscount Falkland, and he named the islands after his sponsors. They weren't nobody occupied them then for another 100 years, and then there was a bit of a competition between the French and the British as to who was going to be there. The first formal claim to the islands is British, and that was in 1765. Now, there was a very, very small period of time when there were some Argentine settlers on the islands between about 1820 and 1833. But frankly, that's 13 years in a long history. We were the first people to see it. We were the first people to land on it. We were the first people to put formal claim in. That's the real history, and that's the real background. And we occupied it continuously since 1833. So I fear that those who've been calling it the Malvinas, which after all actually is not an Argentine word anyway. It's from Les Malouines, because the French settlers who arrived there about the same time as the British did.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
That's right. It's got nothing to do with the Argentine at all.
OK. Now, obviously, back in 1982, the Argentinians took advantage of the fact that we in Britain hadn't done much to protect the Falkland Islands. In fact, Falkland Islanders then didn't even have British passports, but it was in response to the war that we gave them British passports, quite rightly too. I mean, I haven't been there, but I know a lot of people who have been there, and they say it's more British than Britain. They're very proud of their British heritage, so they've got that. So they weren't very well protected in '82, but since then, despite our depleted military force generally, the Falklands now are well protected, so the Argentinians would do well to remember that. They better not take action. We are ready if they do.
Yeah, no, the place is now defended, and I think there'd be it's what you might call a kind of tripwire force. I mean, it's not designed to withstand a kind of full-scale invasion, but it'd be enough to kind of slow them down. And I think the honest truth is that we get this from time to time from the Argentine. They kind of when they want to kind of raise the diplomatic temperature, they talk about their claim to it. Is normally because something else is going on in the Argentine. In this case, I think it's World Cup excitement. Other times, it's because their economy is in bad order. That was the real driver between in the 1982 invasion of the Falkland Islands by the Argentinians. The military junta who ran the place were basically in real trouble. So they looked for an excuse to try and do something outside, and they looked at the Falkland Islands as their way ahead. So I think that's the real honest and truth of it. And I think there's a good possibility that peaceful relations can take place between the Falkland Islanders and the rest of the continent down there. Indeed, that's what everybody wants. But kind of raising the temperature just because it's a football match, I think, is absurd.
Now, what would help in this debate would be if British patriots, British people, called it what it is, and that's the Falkland Islands, as opposed to the Malvinas, which I always thought was Spanish, but you just put me right on that one. Anyway, here is our friend Gary Lineker hosting his The Rest is Football podcast show for Netflix over there in New York. Let's have a listen to Gary.
England could face Argentina in a semi-final. We're getting ahead of ourselves a fraction, but so much history between our nations, isn't there? I mean, obviously, it's not that long ago, two countries were at war, Falklands or Malvinas.
Well, he was almost right, and then he corrected himself. Why would a British person correct themselves to call it the Malvinas? That's an act of treachery, if you ask me, Simon.
I think treachery are strong words, Kevin, but I think he could stick with it. 255 British service personnel lost their lives fighting that, plus 3 Falkland Islands civilians. So I think we should stick to what it actually is correct. It's called the Falkland Islands for a reason. As I said, it was named by a British person back in 1690, and we should stick to that. Unless Gary's trying to sort of sell his podcast to the Argentine as well. I think we should all stick with its correct constitutional title and support the Falkland Islanders in the maintenance of their independence.
Yeah, and if nothing else, we should support the Falkland Islanders because this is a matter of self-determination. These people want to be British. They want British passports. They do not want to be Argentinian. They don't want Argentine passports. So we should, the Argentinians should respect the desires of the people who live in these remote islands that they have never controlled.
Absolutely. And I think the honest truth is, and this is, I think, maybe a hard truth for them, I mean, if they showed respect, if they showed recognition of what is the legal, the constitutional, international picture, then I think a lot of really good things could happen in terms of trade, in terms of commerce between the islands and the Argentine. And I think the majority of people would want that. And I think that's where we should be looking to do that. But it does come with a price, and the price is you have to recognise that Britain and the Falkland Islands are separate and are not part of the Argentine, and that their claim, I fear, is frankly spurious.
Hear, hear. Simon, great to have you on the show as always. Thank you very much. Colonel Simon Diggins there, Defence and Security Analyst, former Defence Attaché in Kabul. What do you think of Gary Lineker calling the Falklands the Malvinas? Why did he do that? He went the Falklands or the Malvinas. Why? Why? That's not what they're called. End of. 03444991000. Well, we'll go to the football side of that grudge match against Argentina on Wednesday next, in the excellent company of the Sun's Director of Sport, Sean Custis. That next, stay tuned.
Here at Talk, we're giving you the chance to win a massive £26,000.
The question is, what would you do with all that money?
I don't know. We've got a wedding.
I would buy a camper van.
Probably just like clothes, yeah.
Go on a big holiday. Emigrate.
So if you fancy getting your hands on £26,000 tax-free, here's all the details you need to enter.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 83338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1 PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. This is a network promotion, full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to New York and talk to the director of sport at the Sun newspaper. He's in charge of a fantastic operation by that publication. They've had loads of people all over Mexico, America, Canada, covering every corner of this amazing tournament. So great work, Sean. I'm sure you're really pleased that I approve. But first, before we talk about Wednesday, the grudge match, semi-final, England-Argentina again. A little bit of a look back on Saturday night's England-Norway game. I thought it was not a classic football match, but I thought that although it was close, we went to extra time, I thought that England were the superior team, and in the end, that superiority showed. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think you're right. I always thought we would get them in the end. I admit it was a bit of a struggle, and it was difficult at times. But one thing this England team has shown is amazing resilience and determination, and has been there in the past. You know, I think when we came out here, people were saying, "Oh, it's hot. You know, they're going to wilt in the heat. It's going to all get a bit difficult. We'll get tired. We've had a long season, etc." And while we've had some case of fatigue, particularly with Declan Rice, perhaps, with injury as well, most of them seem to be able to be getting through this quite well. Harry Kane's played a phenomenal amount of games. He still seems pretty good, albeit that he had quite a quiet game against Norway. Bellingham certainly looks the business. There is a little concern about his shoulder from the weekend, but I think he'll be okay. I feel they're in pretty good shape, but they would like to play a little bit better, as Thomas Tuchel alluded to after the game. He wants a better performance. He says no problem with the mentality. You couldn't possibly question that, but a better performance. And I think the fact Jude Bellingham thought they played okay is fine, if that's his opinion.
Well, he did, Sean. More. He certainly did.
He did. Oh, yeah, he played fantastically well. But, you know, it wasn't a terrible team performance. I
didn't think so.
They were okay.
No, I thought it was a good, solid performance, very close, but we did it in the end. And what did you make of that slight spat between Tuchel and Jude Bellingham, where Jude Bellingham rather tetchily said, well, he doesn't know what it's like, you know, they're a good side and all that. I mean, what did you make of that?
I don't know, Kev, have you ever had a bit of a disagreement with your boss? These things happen.
Well, it's been known, Sean. It's been known.
It can get quite emotional after football games as well, and of course it's instant reaction, which is what we want. I don't want them going off hiding for an hour to consider what their thoughts should be. We want them straight away. Those were their thoughts at the time. They're both very strong characters. They have had their moments, shall we say, in the past, but I don't think it's causing the team any detriment, and I think they're.
Don't tell me he's got stuck. Has he got stuck? No, he hasn't. Has he got stuck? Oh, I was just going to. We've got to get him back. Are you there, Sean? Yeah. We've got a bit of a dodgy line, but let's talk about the big match on Wednesday. I mean, Argentina, their entire World Cup has been a bit like England's match against Norway. They've struggled against every team, even Cape Verde. You know, really had a hard time, but they've just about got the job done. But they haven't really come up against a team as strong as England. I mean, my point is we have every reason to feel confident against Argentina, this Argentina team.
We do, but people weren't overboard about the last Argentina team that won the last World Cup at the start. They lost their first game to Saudi Arabia and went on to win the trophy.
Yeah.
Special thing about them that gets them through, gets them over the line. They've been doing it for years and years now. Yes, Messi is their talisman. They have people who work around Messi very, very well to try and get the ball to him to get the goals. And if he does get the ball, he can cause havoc and he can pull the team through. I think it's the hardest test will have faced so far, and it's quite a mountain to climb.
And the other semi-final tomorrow night, 8 p.m. in Dallas, France versus Spain. The two best teams in the tournament, for my money. France, I think, are the best team. How would you see that semi-final playing out? Do you think France will nick it?
I do. I think France are overwhelmingly the best side at this World Cup. They've got such a great attack, but they're pretty solid in defence too. Spain don't particularly excite me, but they have a great way of keeping the ball out the net. I think they've only conceded one goal. They pass you to death, which is a bit boring at times. But they're a formidable force. France are the more exciting side, the more interesting side, and I think they will get through to the final, hopefully to play us.
And that'll be a hell of a game, won't it?
Well, France England, yeah. It certainly will be. But, you know, Argentina, Kevin, is, you know, I heard you talking before about all the political sides of it, but just on the football side of it, I've been to the last two England-Argentina games. One was a friendly in Geneva in 2005. That's how long ago it was, 21 years since we last played them. We won that 3-2, and it proved that you can't have a friendly against Argentina.
No such thing. No such thing.
And then there was the revenge match in 2002, which we won in Sapporo in Japan in the indoor stadium when David Beckham scuffed a penalty to win 1-0 to get them back for 1998. And that was fairly highly charged as well. It was pretty spicy on the field. So look, we know it's going to go up a level, not just in terms of what performance is expected, but the spikiness, tension on the field adds to the whole mix.
Well, they're the old enemy, aren't they? Before you go, Sean, tell us how our viewers and listeners can follow the Sun's coverage of this brilliant tournament.
Yeah, our Proper Football Daily Show is on right through to the end of the tournament. Tactics Exposed is on. We've got all the information you need on our website and in print and on our socials and everywhere, Kevin.
You've done a great job, Sean. Let's talk again very soon. Good to talk to you, mate. Sean Custis, Director of Sport, directing an amazing operation by the Sun newspaper. Loads of journalists over there for that paper, all over the place, every city. It's been an incredible operation. You can get it all on the Sun's website. If you don't know how to get that, just put The Sun into Google. You'll find it. Right, let's go to a break. We're going to have the 6 o'clock news in just a moment. And then after that, I'll be joined by Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. You know, who, let's be straight, he's got a connection. She's the partner of Richard Tice, deputy leader of Reform UK. So I think Isabel's got a lot to say about what has happened over this past extraordinary weekend. So that next, stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we need to talk about the royals. We're going to talk about Harry and Meghan's chaotic visit to the King over the weekend with the kids, Archie and Lilibet. The King had not seen his grandchildren for 4 long years. The entire visit to the UK, though, by Harry and Meghan, the Sussexes, was a shambles. We'll talk about that in a little while. Also, we'll get the latest on the migrant crisis. On Friday, the biggest ever, quotes, small, close quotes, boat came across, 128 people on board. That was amid about 585 people crossing the channel illegally in just 3 days last week. So still they come, they're back crossing the channel. We'll talk about that in a little while. I also want to talk about those riots last week by Morocco fans in London, running rampage, injuring one copper, had to go to hospital. Only 4 arrests were made, only 4. None of them, as far as I can work out, are in jail yet. I wonder, and no comments from Keir Starmer or the Cabinet or anybody, I wonder if those riots were being conducted by England fans draped in the St George's Cross, if the Prime Minister would have condemned them as far-right racists and had half of them in jail by now serving disproportionately long sentences. I wonder. 03444 991 1000. Let's go over to my next guest. She is a Talk's excellent international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good afternoon.
Before we talk, there was a Commons debate about Ann Widdecombe earlier, in which Richard Tice, the Reform UK deputy, made a very good tribute speech. I believe you may know Richard. But before we do discuss what's happened, this is Shabana Mahmood speaking in the Commons earlier today.
Mr. Speaker, on Wednesday, Ann Widdecombe was murdered in her home. The circumstances of her death are extremely distressing. Counter Terrorism Policing have now taken the lead in the investigation. As Lawrence Taylor, the head of National Counter Terrorism Policing, has said, and I quote, "We now have new information and evidence that means Counter Terrorism Policing is leading the investigation. We are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack." The police now have a suspect in custody, a 28-year-old white British man, and I can confirm to the House that this man was not known to prevent.
Well, that's unusual. Usually they are known to prevent. Usually Prevent has investigated them about 6 times before they actually do anything, but not this time. Now, she offered... the Home Secretary offered Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, a meeting with RAVEC, which is this government panel, civil servants, coppers, security experts, who meet to decide security protection for members of the royal family, prominent figures, politicians. So she offered Nigel Farage a meeting, presumably to discuss security arrangements for Reform UK MPs, who must surely right now be seen as potential serious targets. Why did she not offer to restore the 75% of personal security offered to Nigel Farage by Parliament, which was cut last September? So last September, they took away 3/4 of the protection and personal security offered by Parliament, provided by Parliament, to Nigel Farage, undoubtedly probably the biggest target in the House of Commons. They took away 75% of his personal security. In the light of the last few days' events, they should restore that security, that 75%, as a matter of urgency, shouldn't they?
Well, I imagine that's where this will end up. I mean, how many times has Nigel been saying in recent weeks and months that he feels vulnerable, that he is a target, that it is dangerous to live in his shoes. He said it 1,000 times. And there are those on the left that just simply won't take this seriously. Well, I'm not sure whether they really need any more evidence of just how serious this is. But I don't really want to make this about whether Nigel deserves more security, because I just don't think there's a case to answer there. Of course
he does. Yeah, of course he does. Yeah.
I do want to talk about what's happened today with the developments of the authorities now saying that there is it's suggesting there's a terrorist dimension to this appalling crime.
I think it's a bit more than that, Isabel. The Counter Terrorism Squad have now taken the investigation from the ludicrous Devon and Cornwall police, who have since last Friday been assuring us that there's no indication there's any involvement of politics or terrorism, no indication. Please don't speculate. And we're going, I mean, apart from the fact we shouldn't get too speculative about what happened, but don't insult our intelligence. Are they trying to suggest that some guy in Rotherham got into a car, went on a 300-mile random joyride, and somehow ended up at Ann Widdecombe's house in Devon, where it went tragically wrong? Wow, what an accident! I mean, who the hell are they kidding? And when they said that at the beginning of the weekend, don't speculate, it's not political, it's not terrorism, they didn't know, did they? Why are they telling us it wasn't when they didn't know?
They didn't know, and they just came out with that from a position of complete ignorance in order, as you've been saying all afternoon, just to try to keep everybody quiet, And the BBC slavishly ran this line for all of yesterday. Throughout yesterday, that was their actual headline. Their headline on this tragedy was not about Ann Widdecombe or about anything else. It was that there's no political dimension to this. Well, I think all of us can see that it's pretty obvious that there's a political dimension, whether politics or terror, there's a pretty strong overlap between those two. This poor woman was murdered on a Wednesday lunchtime, apparently in her own home, in a place which is pretty rural and pretty hard to get to. I was never really buying into the idea that this didn't have some political dimension, because that's what Anne was. She was a political figure. She wasn't not in any unpleasant way, but she wasn't lots of other things. It's not like she was also, I don't know, a diplomat and a therapist and a chef. She was a political figure, so it's kind of obvious that is likely to be why she was targeted. And I just feel very, very exercised about the way that we have been gaslit all weekend.
I do too. I think it's an absolute scandal, and the police have got to stop doing this. It's not their job to keep social harmony. That's what they seem to think it is. Oh, let's tell the public some lies just to keep them quiet, keep them calm. No, just do your job. Catch the bad guys. Social harmony is not the police's job. That's the job of politicians, of the government. And yet they seem to have taken on this role for themselves. It's not political, it's not terrorism. Well, what the hell was it then? Just really scandalous, I think. And, of course, this led to the other side of this scandal. Nigel Farage, Richard Tyson, all the Reform MPs, indeed, most people from Reform, Zia Yousaf as well, getting it in the neck for allegedly being accused by lefties of cashing in, exploiting Ann Widdecombe's murder to get themselves off the front page, due to those financial allegations that persist. What a disgusting thing to say. How about this? That these are people who were friends and colleagues of poor Ann Widdecombe, and they went down to Devon to pay their respects and to lay flowers. What the hell is wrong with that? And half the reason that Farage in particular was attacked all weekend was because of what the Devon and Cornwall police said. So they're saying, well, Farage, you're trying to politicise this. The Devon and Cornwall police have made it very clear it's very unlikely to have been political or terrorism. Well, guess what? Today, the Counter Terrorism Squad have taken over the investigation, so it looks as if it was very likely it was terrorism. So Nigel and Reform were right all along, and they should not have been vilified over a weekend when they were just trying to mourn their fallen colleague and friend. Absolutely disgusting scenes, I thought.
I really feel so kind of upset and furious about this and the reaction of some people. First of all, the controversy surrounding Nigel Farage's finances and wider controversy surrounding reform donations and so on is not going to go away just because of this absolutely appalling murder. Of course it's not, because there are people who are never going to let this go, ever. So the idea that anyone in reform thinks, oh, well, that's a rather convenient, appalling loss of our colleague, let's just kind of really make a song and the dance of this so that there are a few less headlines about our finances, is just completely juvenile and stupid, because that would never be a strategy that worked, even if reform was that callous. But I can tell you, sitting here, that the party leadership is absolutely poleaxed by this. Everybody is completely stunned. And, the whole country is stunned. We haven't yet got to a point in our poor, battered, beleaguered country where elderly ladies, whatever their role in life, whether they're public figures or not, are just randomly murdered on a Wednesday afternoon in their own homes. We haven't yet got to the point where that's just a bit shrug. So everybody up and down the country, I think, is shocked by this. Imagine how much worse it is if you are somebody who worked with her very closely and already feel yourself a bit vulnerable. This is like a massive deal. So to start reducing it to, reform's trying to make it into a political thing. Well, it is a political thing, people. And people are frightened, people are hurting, and it could not be more serious. So just get off your high horses, please.
Let's discuss a couple of examples of these be kind people from the left and their response to Ann Widdecombe's murder and reform's involvement. I give you the Labour Minister for the Safeguarding of Women, Natalie Fleet. She's an unusual choice for the safeguarding of women because she voted against the rape gang inquiry. She took over from Jess Phillips on this job. Anyway, yesterday she tweeted, Nigel Farage and his gang of bin men get the same security as the rest of us. Sick of the faux outrage. Today she has tweeted, apologies for offence caused by my earlier tweet, which I have now deleted. Where does she get off?
I mean, where do we begin with so many of these people? There's a prominent commentator who I have hitherto had a great deal of respect for, who's on the left of politics, who has been at this all weekend. And that commentator is very influential, and they have been plain wrong about this.
He had a go at me. I know. Well, let's not mention him. But I had a huge, as I told you earlier, I had a huge Twitter pile on, because I had the temerity to suggest that maybe I didn't really trust Devon and Cornwall police. People go, how dare you not trust the police? Why don't you trust the police? Oh, I don't know. Let's have a look, shall we? Oh, Southport, Henry Novak, and so many other examples where the police are the perpetrators of misinformation, not the bloody public. And that's what happened over the weekend. Devon and Cornwall police spread misinformation, which led to the vilification of Nigel Farage and the Reform MPs who just went down to pay their respects, and led to the vilification of people like me who suggested that maybe the police had lost our trust. Because of the way Devon and Cornwall police have behaved over the weekend, trust in the police has fallen even further. Absolute disgrace.
Well, it was the moment that they paid tribute to their own policing that really kind of got my radar going. It's a bit like when you rock up to a hotel that calls itself the most magnificent imperial hotel, you kind of know it's going to be 3-star. Yeah. When police start saying our policing has been a finest example of modern policing, you think I think they're protesting a bit much here. I think they know that they've blundered around a bit here. And I just think it's so corrosive, this stuff. When police start making these proclamations before they actually know what they're talking about, it means that next time we definitely won't believe them. I didn't believe them anyway, but we definitely won't next time, will we?
Yeah, that's the point. They did not have to make that statement, and it is not their job to keep the public calm. It's not their job. Their job is to catch criminals. Simple as that. But they've taken on this political role of, oh, let's tell the plebs some lies so they don't get all uppity. So we keep them quiet, keep the masses quiet. Let's tell them the lie that we don't know. It wasn't political, it wasn't terrorism. They had no idea. It's outrageous that they made that statement. And now Devon and Cornwall Police lie in ignominy and shame because they've had the investigation taken off them. They spent all weekend, they kept stressing, we retain privacy in this investigation. They obviously didn't want to hand it to anyone else. They wanted to be on the front pages. They wanted to be on the telly. But they have now, in disgrace, had it taken off them. Let's talk about another example of be kind leftism. That's a guy called Heather Herbert, who's a bloke in a dress who works at Aberdeen University, a so-called trans woman. He tweeted some good news for once. I hope it was an extremely painful death. I hope she was handcuffed to the bed as she screamed in agony. This person works at Aberdeen University and is a former Labour candidate. What do you make of that? It's extraordinary, isn't it?
I mean, what kind of mentality do you have to say that about another human being? There's nobody on this earth that I would wish that on, apart from perhaps, I don't know, not even a serial killer, because I don't believe in capital punishment. So the idea that someone thinks like that their mind is that twisted, that is one sick psychology. And like you, I defend the right of people to say awful, stupid, crass, cruel things. But I don't think they should be in teaching positions in universities. I have no hesitation in saying that I think that sick individual should be fired forthwith. They should not be in contact with any young minds.
Can I just sort of finish on a last point that irritates me? It's another thing I'm sick of. I'm sick of the police standing up and telling me and the rest of the public, don't speculate. Stop ordering us around. Stop ordering us around. And you get on with your job. Go and see if you can find out who did it. Of course we're going to speculate. I would agree. You should try not to speculate online, try not to put it in writing. But telling us not to speculate is like, it's just a natural human response to that shocking murder. Of course people are speculating. They're speculating in the pubs, they're speculating among themselves, in their families, over the dinner table, the breakfast table. You know, I'm just sick of this authoritarian approach by these coppers who think they're not only in charge of everything we do, and who think that we're not only so stupid they could just lie to us and get away with it, but just telling us what to do. Shut up. Stop telling me not to speculate. If I want to speculate, this is a free country just about, last time I looked, I will speculate. I'm sick of it.
Well, I think speculation is entirely reasonable and fully to be expected. You know, if people weren't speculating, you'd have to say we've completely lost all our natural human instincts.
Exactly.
It's part of self-preservation that you try to work out. You know, that actually, I'm no psychologist, but it goes to the heart of it, doesn't it? Is there a serial killer on the loose? Is this a one-off? Might I be in danger? That is why people want to know why, you know, unbelievably violent crime happens to somebody that they've heard of or they know, somebody in public life or somebody on the same street, whatever it may be. Of course, we're going to speculate. And I read a very interesting set of tweets by, I think he must have been a criminal lawyer, about why the police say this. And he tried to rationalise it. Well, you know, murder inquiries are so delicate. And if the police put one step wrong, then it can derail the whole thing. And I still wasn't really convinced, you know, just because you and I, Kev, sitting here going, well, I think this could have happened or it might not have happened, or, you know, any number of Joe bloggers on social media are speculating. I don't see how that affects what the police are thinking. Are they really reading it on social media and going, oh, well, in that case, I better change my theories? You know, hopefully they're a bit more professional than that.
Yeah, they should stop playing mind games. I mean, that's what they played with the nation over the weekend, just telling us, don't you start speculating about politics.
I think I'm going to do a bit of
terrorism.
extra speculating,
Yeah,
just on a point of principle now.
Let's get together very soon and speculate our heads off, shall we? Seriously, Isabel, really good to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Isabel Oakeshott, our international editor. Do you? I just don't like these people ordering me around. Do you? Don't you speculate? Who are you to tell me what to do? I think I will speculate, thank you very much. I mean, it's unbelievable. And Devon and Cornwall Police, what a shower you are. What fools you made of yourself over the weekend. Absolute fools. And now you've had the investigation taken off you because you're clearly not capable of handling it. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the migrant crisis with Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control. Lots and lots, hundreds of migrants coming across the channel again. And on Friday, the biggest ever, quotes, small, close quotes, boat came across 128 people on board. That's not a small boat, is it? We'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about those Moroccan football fans rioting in London last week after their little football team got thrashed by far superior France. We'll talk about all of that when we come back. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to the director of the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Welcome, Robert.
Evening, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on the show. Well, first up, there's a few migrant crisis aspects we need to discuss, but I wanted to get your take on a story that got lost in the mist, because it basically happened after Morocco were frankly thrashed by far superior France in the World Cup. And this precipitated a massive, great riot in London, West London, up and down the Edgware Road the other night, which would have been Thursday night. And the scenes are extraordinary. I mean, this is massive. There were fires everywhere. The coppers at one time, if you're watching this, they had to run for their lives because they were heavily outnumbered. One copper ended up in hospital. But among all of this, look at that, throwing stuff and everything. A huge riot, a huge riot. Also similar riots in Paris and the Netherlands. So these Moroccan fans, we know one thing about them, they're very bad losers, sore losers. But there are only 4 arrests and no comment from the Prime Minister, from the Cabinet, from anyone. Now, my suggestion is that if this was hundreds, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of rioters here on the Edgware Road, if this was England fans draped in the St George's Cross, my guess is that by now Keir Starmer would have denounced them. Look at, they're throwing fireworks at them and everything. Would have denounced them as far-right racist thugs, and had about 50% of them in jail by now, serving about 20 years behind bars. But these Moroccans, these marauding Muslims, nothing has been said at all about this. It's outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a good point. I think if this had been England fans, we would have had this splattered across sort of Keir Starmer's grid for the forthcoming week, and the need to clamp down on the emergence of football hooliganism. What we are seeing here really is, well, we're seeing individuals protesting about a football game that happened in America between Morocco and France, and somehow that now results in riots effectively on the streets of the United Kingdom, which is an astonishing state of affairs. But we are seeing really actually the myth of multiculturalism, which is this idea that individuals, just because they happen to be given a British passport via administrative processes, or they happen to have been born here, are going to become British by that very nature, and are going to embrace this culture. And, you know, it's the Norman Tebbit test, really, actually. You know, where do their loyalties really lie when it comes to sport? And I think this is very clearly an instance of how mass migration and multiculturalism has led to the mixture of oil and water, in that they don't really mix. And actually, we end up with parallel societies with very separate loyalty portfolios running along one side of each other, but no real assimilation. I mean, assimilation at this point now, when it comes to the multicultural utopia that individuals are trying to build, or with the mass migration experiment that continues, is a pipe dream. Assimilation simply cannot happen now when we have such large diasporas that hold very clear loyalties to other countries, to distant countries that aren't our own. And I think actually the reason why this hasn't been talked about quite as much is because we are getting quite used to these scenes on the streets of London, in, as you say, individuals that are, whether it be tied up with the Palestine cause or anti-Israeli causes, or causes such as the Moroccan one, are now so regular and blighting the streets so much that actually it's not as newsworthy as it perhaps would have been 20 or so years ago. The truth is, Robert, it got blotted out by Ann Widdecombe's murder. And we were going to cover this story big time on Friday, but, you know, events, dear boy, overtook the news agenda, and therefore we didn't even get to mention this. But look at it. I mean, if you're watching on TV, folks, this is massive. There's missiles being fired, fireworks being chucked, coppers running for their lives. If this was England fans, if this was people, a bunch of people, you know, rioting about, protesting about the migrant crisis, they'd all be in jail. This is two-tier policing once again, Robert. Let's go to the migrant crisis, shall we? Well, last week, in just 3 days, 585 migrants crossed the Channel illegally and I'm using the term loosely, in small boats. But one of them on Friday, we say small boats, but it was the record
biggest small boat ever. It had 128 people on board. That's a disturbing new development, a vast small boat. And also, you know, it just proves that still they come, that these crossings are still going on. And I wonder what you're thinking of Andy Burnham and what his response will be to Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary's alleged crackdown on the migrant crisis, because, of course, left-wing Labour MPs are urging him to ditch her crackdown. But the word is he's going to stick by her. But I'm not convinced, to be honest with you. What's your feeling?
Well, I think with Burnham, his ideological axis is very much actually on the migration issue a lot further left, not just slightly further left than what Mahmood's proposals, which already aren't enough to deal with the fiscal and social crisis that the Boris wave represents, but he's very much to the left of even that position. This is an individual who, whilst he was in Manchester, was saying that migrants who have arrived in the UK on a temporary visa should have the right to access social housing or welfare. So when we're talking about settlement, actually, what Andy Burnham really wants in his heart of heart, and has made it very clear during many, many public appearances whilst up in Manchester, is that he thinks individuals should have the immediate access to welfare. I think when it comes to actually the bill at this current stage, I think it's, you know, when it comes to parliamentary wranglings, you don't actually get a sense of what people's true beliefs are. So we do have to look at what he has publicly said, and he is very much in favour, for a variety of sort of vapid reasons, of extending British generosity and largesse through settlement to migrants. And I think actually, when you look now at what the argument when it comes to not extending the period that an individual has to wait before they get indefinite leave to remain. When you look at what the Labour Party now actually putting forward, they completely blow apart their own argument in favour of mass migration, because they say not allowing migrants to claim welfare would cause them to fall into poverty. Well, then surely that's a case against these being sort of economic boons themselves. And it boils down to, in their mind's eye, a ridiculous case of fairness. We made some promise at some point. I've never been able to recall when this promise was made to individuals that they'd be able to get settlements. So they're now sort of stuck in this really heart-wrenching position that doesn't actually hold any concrete policy sense behind it. And I think actually the public can see through it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this guy Burnham, he's already made a kind of extremely worrying statement about Israel and the Jewish community, saying that Keir Starmer got it entirely wrong when he stood with Israel after the October the 7th atrocity. So he's clearly, Burnham, trying to suck up to his left-wing Labour backbenchers. So why wouldn't he do the same about the migrant crisis? At the moment, the word is he's going to back Shabana Mahmood and her crackdown, but I don't think he will.
No, and of course, crackdown perhaps is being far too generous to Mahmood, because let's not forget, as I think we have discussed previously, the real actual poison pill in Shabana Mahmood's asylum plans are the safe and legal routes, the creation of brand new legal routes for individuals from very culturally distant nations to arrive into Britain without it actually having any impact really on the small boats crisis. And I think we are seeing with that superboat that we saw in the last couple of days, is the demand is still well and truly there for these illegal crossings as well, and nothing actually the government is doing is abating that. What they are simply doing is forcing the people smugglers to go away and have a bit of a rethink and a reconfiguration of how they approach this crisis before undoubtedly we start to see a surge again.
Well, the good news is at least the government won't have to worry too much about it, because Andy Burnham waltzes into number 10 Downing Street in 7 days' time, unchallenged by even a hint of democracy. And then all the MPs will go on vacation for all of the summer, so they could just let all the migrants come across without bothering too much about it. It's brilliant. And so the circus goes on, Robert. Really good to have you on the show, as always. Thank you so much. That is Robert Bates. He is the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. We're going to go to break now. We're going to take your calls in a minute, by the way. 0344499 1000. Lots to talk about. Did you like getting deceived by the police all weekend? No terrorism, no politics. Yeah, right. Did you like that? I didn't. 03444991000. But next, after these messages, we're going to talk to Angela Levin, royal biographer, about Harry and Meghan's chaotic trip to Britain. They did actually squeeze in a visit to the King, so at least he got to see his grandchildren after 4 long years. But frankly, their entire excursion, the Sussex's excursion with the King's grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet, was a shambles, absolute shambles and a joke. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go over to royal biographer Angela Levin. Angela, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much for having me on.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Well, first of all, we'll talk about what I would describe as the shambles of Harry and Meghan and the kids' visit over the weekend, which did at least result in the King getting to see his grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet, for the first time in 4 years. So it wasn't all bad news. But we'll talk about the visit generally in a second. But I think we need to discuss quite an important news line, and that is this. We are told that the King and the royal courtiers, the royal staff, are absolutely furious with Harry for his response to his crushing defeat by the Daily Mail in the High Court last week. You know, a 4-year case culminating in a 46-day trial, 40 journalists from the Mail interviewed, various celebrities interviewed, the result of which was that all 97 of Harry's allegations of illegality, phone hacking, planting microphones, using unlawful detectives, all 97 were thrown out of court ignominiously. Absolutely shameful on the part of Harry. Harry immediately announces this is a typical whitewash, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's two sides to this. First of all, the King, in the end, these are the King's courts. They're his courts. The judge, in the end, is His Majesty's judge. He cannot have his son going round insulting the courts of this land and the judges of this land. Secondly, Harry is so stupid because Mr. Justice Nicklin is now sitting in judgment of what costs to award the Daily Mail. This case has cost £50 million. The Daily Mail, quite reasonably, is saying, well, we didn't bring the case. We didn't want to have the case. We've had to wage this case. We've had to defend ourselves. The costs surely should not be ours. Usually judges will go, no, you're absolutely right. You're the defendants. You want the case. They have to pay for you. Well, any doubts that Mr. Justice Nicklin might have had about that surely got dispelled when Harry accused him of presiding over a whitewash. What a stupid, dumb thing for the dim Duke to do.
Yeah, it's a completely ludicrous, isn't it? And actually, as you said, that the feeling about that goes back to his father. His father's not well, he's got cancer. So when the king is in a difficult position, because that's what his son is actually doing, it's absolutely appalling. He doesn't know, and how can he make a judgment like that? I mean, the Justice Nicklin is a very well-known, careful lawyer, and somebody to come in like Harry and say, no, it's not. I'm the one who knows about this lot. You know, it's absolutely true that he's going to have a very bad time. In 2 weeks, I think the 29th of July, the judge decides who is going to pay what. Yeah. So that would be very interesting, because he feels that Harry will have to pay a lot of money because it's all about him. So the thing is, I think Harry will get money from somebody else. You know, he'll ask his friends and see what he can get. Elton John will be the best one, I think, because he's got masses of money. But I think Harry has got to understand that he's behaved incredibly badly. And when I watched him, you know, on Invictus Games, it just made me very upset and angry that he could be dancing about and kissing sheep and doing all silly things.
It was a goat, Angela. You've got to get it right.
I think it's the same thing, isn't it, really, in terms of kissing? I thought that I would know.
Well, let's hope not. No, but I mean, seriously, you're right. I mean, there he is making these photogenic visits and, oh, look at me meeting hospital staff and aren't I wonderful? As if it was just, you know, a classic royal ribbon-cutting visit. It wasn't. It was a complete chaotic shambles in which the king had to announce in the end, you can't stay at Buckingham Palace, you've left it too late. Suddenly, it's all up in the air, but they did manage to fly in Meghan, Archie and Lilibet from Portugal. We didn't get to see them. They went straight to Highgrove, and at last the king got to see his grandchildren. But it was just a mess, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a mess. And what's very interesting about it is that the king insisted that Camilla would be with him. And Camilla is very careful about how people talk to him, and particularly Harry. She was in once before. The two of them could not do what they wanted. Harry had sent through a list of what he wanted if he stayed in one of the palaces. Everything was going to be what they wanted, and they didn't get a thing, actually. I think they must have absolutely hated it, because there would have been conversation, but not very warm, because Meghan would be absolutely lost with anger. And I don't know how they got on with the children. Somebody said to me they didn't come in the end, but I'm sure that they did, because he wanted to see them. But you can't actually make friends with a 5- and a 7-year-old instantly and play with them and make it nice. They have a sort of mini house in the garden. And so the king probably said that the kids can play with that, which would have been very nice. Up a tree, it's very nice.
Yeah, I've seen that house. But I reckon that, you know, I mean, you know what little kids are like. This is both of them basically for more than half their lives. They haven't seen their grandfather. They're probably going, who's that guy? You know, it's a very sad situation brought upon them by their father and their mother.
I think it's also the same thing for their grandmother, Diana, because I think if a 5- and a 7-year-old have to go to water where she is...
she's on an island, isn't she?
Yeah, she's on an island. And she's there. And what do you say to a child? There is your grandmother. I think they'd be terrified that she was in water. I think it's not a very nice thing to show your little ones. But that is very important to them. Harry wanted to do that. So that's what they did.
I mean, what do you think that is about? I mean, that just strikes me as a, you know, headline hunting, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but it's also about the fact that they want to do a series about Diana towards her death. and that would be very useful. So who knows if they've started taking photographs of her. Harry was going to do a lot in it, and Meghan too. You want to go, oh, please save it.
I know, exactly right. Now, they've flown back, we understand now, to California, the family, the Sussexes. So what's going on with Harry and Meghan now? As far as I can work out, neither of them have got particularly much on their plate, especially him.
Yes. Well, I think he thought that he could win what he wanted with his father, that he would win the case, which would have made him feel strong and muscular. And, you know, I knew this would happen.
The Dragon Slayer.
Yeah. And he would actually feel that everything else is good. And I think the very, very quick way he dealt with the Invictus Games and the children who were ill, that was just to show how quickly he could be. And I think that was to upset William, because in a way showing I can do anything you can do much quicker than you. And I think that the whole thing, he was set to win, and he's gone losing. That's my feeling.
Yeah, and last comment from you, if you will, Angela. What do you think Meghan would have made if she tuned into the Wimbledon men's singles final yesterday? And they're in the royal boxes, all of the Waleses. It's William, Catherine, of course, and the kids. All of them looking all done up to the nines, all having a great time in the sunshine, watching the tennis. More fantastic publicity for that family. Meghan would have hated that, wouldn't she?
She would have been absolutely furious. She'd blame it on Harry, because she'd have said, well, why didn't you get me a seat? Why wasn't I in the you know, where I should be with everybody else? You know, everyone should have seen me. Why not? You know, I'm very important, more important than anybody in the whole world.
Oh, dear, those two. Angela, fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much. That's Angela Levin, royal biographer on that chaotic trip to Britain by Harry, Meghan and the kids. They're back in California, we understand now. Let's go to break. When we come back, your phone calls. I'll read some messages. I don't know if you've got any voice notes, but if we have, I'll play them out. All of that still to come. Peter Cardwell coming in the studio as well to let you know what he's got lined up for you from 7 until 10 p.m. So still quite a lot to go. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight to the phones. Or let me read a couple of messages, actually. This is from Linda. Linda says, in Worcestershire, she says, so Diane Abbott has once again made it all about her, the hierarchy of abuse and the threats she's had. Well, guess what? Diane Abbott is alive and well. Ann Widdecombe is dead, murdered. Well said, Linda. And Suze says, sick to death of Labour's claim of doing the right thing to do as part of their control and gaslighting. Couldn't agree more. We're doing this because it's the right thing to do. Well, we don't think it is. You say it's the right thing to do. That's not generic. You're exactly right. It's a very good point. And this is from Teresa. I'm still in bits over Ann's murder. Could you please call out Gary, the non-entity one-time footballer, for disrespecting all the Brits who died defending the Falklands? What an odious and uneducated man. Yeah, Simon Diggins was pointing out 250 British servicemen and women died in the Falklands War, so let's not forget that. This is from Margaret. Nigel Farage and the Reform MPs were paying their respects to a well-loved, respected colleague. What is wrong with that? Says Margaret. Absolutely nothing, she adds. I agree. It's so ridiculous, so nasty that the Reform UK's MPs were slammed, criticised for cashing in because they went down to pay their respects to Ann Widdecombe and they laid flowers. I mean, come on. Let's have a bit of humanity, shall we? Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Ian in London. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Kev. Good evening. I'll tell you something with all of this business. First thing that came out with Starmer, he got rid of all the anti-Semitism in Labour. He got rid of bugger all.
Yeah, is that... I think he made it better than it was in the Corbyn days, much better. But the remnants of that are still around in Labour. And Andy Burnham making that statement about, I think we went too far after October the 7th. That indicates to me that Israel hate, Jew hate, anti-Semitism is still around in the Labour circles.
Can I say one thing, Kev? Mm-hmm. During the war, and there was a programme on the other night, 60,000 civilians were killed in Hamburg in one night. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Because the American, the British, and the French and the Russian were all against a war with Germany. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So basically, that was in one night. Here, Israel goes out of its way to try and keep the civilian deaths, because what they always do is they say 60,000, 100,000, whatever. The majority are the terrorists, but they won't split it up.
No.
And Burnham, truthfully, it's a load of rubbish with him. In Manchester, when all of it first started, there was all the police and the religious Jews in Manchester were being attacked, and the police did nothing.
Yeah, there's a problem there as well. Yeah, Burnham's statement about Labour's incorrect response to October the 7th, which was to stand with Israel, I think is extremely disturbing. Ian, good call. Thanks for ringing. Ian in London there. Let's move on. By the way, breaking news, David Miliband, Ed Miliband's brother, is pushing to become Britain's next ambassador to Washington instead of returning to the cabinet under Andy Burnham, apparently. The former Foreign Secretary had been widely tipped to get that job back and become Andy Burnham's Foreign Secretary, but a well-placed source has told The Sun that David Miliband has been lobbying hard behind the scenes for Britain's top diplomatic posting in the US. Well, he can't do a worse job than Peter Mandelson, can he? So good luck with that. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Mike in Poole. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Kevin. Yeah, been a long time. I've been holding on for about 3 hours.
Sorry, yeah, well, yeah, well, there's a lot of news going on, but what would you like to say?
Well, I just wanted to comment that Devon and Cornwall just made one very simple, Cornwall Police made one simple mistake. All they had to say was, we don't have enough information.
We don't know. Exactly, Mike. Exactly. They didn't know.
Clearly, they didn't know, so they speculated. So they didn't need to say anything. So the question is, why did they say anything?
Because they've taken on this role for themselves, keeping the public calm, making sure the masses and the plebs don't get overexcited, don't get agitated. That isn't their job.
It didn't anyway, because the very fact they said that signalled to us that they were trying to control something.
Yeah, that's what they were trying to do. You're right.
Going to paint the narrative. We knew that, so there was no point in. We're not that stupid.
Yeah, well, that was the other aspect of this. I think Devon and Cornwall Police were insulting our intelligence. So they asked us to sort of believe that some random guy got in a car in Rotherham, went on a 300-mile joyride, accidentally ended up at the home of Ann Widdecombe, where an unexpected tragic end came to his excursion. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Who the hell do they think we are? Idiots?
You wouldn't accidentally find that place.
Exactly. Who knows what's happened, Mike? We mustn't speculate too much. But what I do think most of us realised very early on, this insistence by Devon and Cornwall Police that there was no terrorism, that there was no political motivation, it was just a pile of claptrap. It absolutely was. They've embarrassed themselves. They've had the investigation taken off them. But it mustn't happen again. The cops have got to stop spreading misinformation, telling us lies to keep us quiet. It's insulting and it has to end. Mike, great call. Thank you very much. Mike in Poole there. Let's go to Laura in Wiltshire. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Kev. Everything that everybody's saying tonight makes so much sense, especially Ian in London about the anti-Semitism thing.
Oh.
However, I'm just going to concentrate on Ann Widdecombe.
Please do.
I am a Reform voter. I have the luck of having Danny Kruger as my local MP, who I support.
Good man.
And he is an incredibly intelligent, amazing person and a brilliant MP. I am incredibly emotional about what has happened. And do you know what really scares me is my daughter, who's 27 years old, on Saturday morning, when she heard this news, said to me, "Mum, you've got to stop saying that you're a Reform supporter. You've got to stop putting the stickers in your car. You've got to stop."
Actually, Laura, it's very, very sad, but your daughter has got a point. You have to be careful. You really do. That's a terrible indictment of modern Britain, but do be careful, Laura. Listen, I've got to move on because Peter Cardwell's in the studio, but call me tomorrow. We'll have a proper chat, but good to talk to you. Laura in Wiltshire. Peter Cardwell is in the studio. He's once again disobeyed me in terms of never wearing shorts again, but he's got them on. Hello, mate.
Another heat wave. How you doing, Kevin? You all right?
Yeah, good. What have you got lined
we're
up?
talking to the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation about Ann Widdecombe, about the fact that the police seem to have broken, as he puts it, their golden rule of not giving a running commentary.
They didn't know whether it was political or